quickly runs away with the game.
Yeah. He's a benevolent dictator.
No, he's literally the exact opposite of that.
Yes, yes, he is.
One might say despotic, even.
Yes. Well, look, he lords over all. He lords over the Gatewatch.
Damn it.
He's a god unto himself.
I am just.
Oh my lord! It's not just to Thaxamunder. Yeah.
What happened? Show us. What does Thaxamunder do?
Yeah. Hold on.
Show us what this card does.
So, I literally, I would love to have your Aether thing and my Call of the Grave in play. It's when any creature is sacrificed, not just to him, he gets a counter.
Whenever a player sacks a creature. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Ugh.
Thanks.
Ugh. Do you have a sack outlet currently?
Nope.
Okay. What am I doing with my life?
Let's take a look at your playmat, because you got a bunch of shit going on now.
I do.
I love that fucking Seb McKinnon mat. That's gorgeous. It
I
really
know.
is.
It's the Kickstarter exclusive from his second Kickstarter. I missed the first one. There was a really good one in the first one. I would have wanted it. It was like the Quambaj Witches.
Combage, C-O-U-M, the Combage.
Yeah.
I have no idea how to pronounce that.
If you look up the card, the art on that card is beautiful.
So I am tapping.
I think it's C-U-O-M.
C-U-O-M.
3 artifacts.
Yep.
And
Wait, it's the other art, though. It's different art than this.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's
I
Seb
didn't know there
McKinnon
was...
art.
Oh, I didn't know there was new art. Oh, shit!
Look at that.
Holy
Yeah,
crap,
nice.
they redid it!
Yeah,
that's
and they had a
awesome.
playmat for that, and it was
That's
for the
fucking
first
gorgeous.
Kickstarter, and it was an exclusive, and I missed that Kickstarter.
Okay.
Hey, Solid Plasma, Italy was fucking amazing.
Yeah, but you can get a print of that.
People were not feeling well this evening, so, wait, hold on. People were not feeling well this evening, so we're in our pajamas.
Yeah.
So just a note, I tapped 3 artifacts and 2 islands to do the reverse engineering, which means I get to draw 3 cards.
Yep. God, that card's gorgeous.
Yeah, I know, isn't it?
Dude, everything Seb does is beautiful.
You can get a print of that, though, which I think I might.
I
should
haven't
do.
played a
Yeah,
land
it's
per
gorgeous.
turn, so I'll do that.
But I would have loved that playmat, too.
You know what I still don't have?
What?
A swamp.
No swamp block for
Wow.
you. Well, and you also still don't have something that makes black mana.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
But-
game night's still happening.
Currently have not needed that.
Nope.
Yep, you do see a Morophon.
That is a Morphon.
You
It is a
do.
Morphon Artificer deck. Morphon Artificer Tribal.
Yep.
Yes. Hey, Solid Plasma, did you guys lose power tonight? We actually lost power for like 2 hours.
Tapping 1, and then the Soul Ring, so that's a total of 3 to play a Mimic back. This is a historic spell, so
Yep.
put 2 cards into your graveyard.
Me?
Yes.
Just me.
Yes, you. Like,
What went?
target player.
Karn's Bastion and Ashiok Nightmare.
Woohoo! I
Weaver.
like both of those cards in your graveyard.
Yep.
Ashiok Nightmare Weaver.
Yep.
Alright, wait, how many cards do you have in your hand?
5.
Gotcha. Because I'm looking over at that side of the table, and guess what? You're now my ally.
Oh, really? Okay.
I'm pointing at this.
What, mimic that?
No, that ridiculousness going on over here.
I'm
This, I'm
protecting
pointing at all of
myself,
this.
But I have 14 life!
That's a thing.
Yeah.
Although speaking of having 14 life, I haven't
cards
had
you have
an
in hand?
attack phase. I've got 4.
4.
I am about to have more too. I'm going to attack with Morph on you. And I will attack.
How big's
that
Morph on?
doesn't have Death Touch, right?
No. Next turn.
6/6.
Next turn.
And I will also attack you with,
Here's my Morphon Death token.
Oh, do I have to have a separate player to get a card, or do I just get a card?
You get one card.
Oh, well, then I'll still attack you.
If you get one
with
attack
Thunder.
phase, yeah.
Okay.
So 6, 7 total?
Oh, wait. I should have
Did you
gotten
make-
another
yeah,
Thopter.
you get another Thopter. I was gonna ask
Yeah,
you, did you make
thank
another
you.
Thopter?
I don't think
Because
I
you get a Thopter for that, and you get a Thopter for that.
I've
Like,
been doing this
58.
one properly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then for good measure, let's say I attacked you with 2 Thopters. Because I had 2 that, like,
I
were
gotcha.
untapped. So take one more. I know it's like, haha, I poke you in the...
Alright, I'm at 57.
All right.
Ooh, 57. Okay.
Anything else, madame?
Good question. No. So I'm not willing to... Yeah. Oh, wait. I get a card, though. Okay. Pass turn.
I poke in your general direction.
Yes.
Your mother was a hamster and your father smelled of elderberries.
Alright. Untap.
I think maybe I'm just gonna take to
Yeah.
wearing this all the time now.
Yeah. Since everyone's like, nice robe.
Alright.
My ex's father brought it back for me from Japan.
Nice.
Hey.
Now go away or I shall quote the phasing rules at you a second time.
Alright, what do I play?
You know, I'm looking at these, and most of these, like, that has a Thopter. He has, like, I think... Oh, look,
It
it's
is,
a little
actually.
skeleton bird in the background.
Skeleton bird.
Let's take a look.
Have a greater appreciation for Thanos. That just... Yeah, I can tell you how to type it.
There he is.
That guy.
Whee!
See? Skeleton bird.
Oh, it is a cute little skeleton bird. It's Matt Stewart. Cool.
Oh, man. See, like...
There's so many cards
I
that
was
you've gotten
going...
signed.
Well, I was going
He was
through the
so
deck,
nice.
and he was so nice. He was like... I'll sign as many as you want. And I'm like, dude, you do not understand. I feel like most of my decks have, like, 10 of your cards. I'm like, look, Matt Stewart, more
Matt
Matt
Stewart,
Stewart,
more Matt Stewart.
Yeah.
Like, in fact, that one I wonder, did he use himself as a reference? Like, if
They
you look
often
at the
do.
face,
So hold on, I gotta go find that. I put it back away.
beefcake.
No,
Close.
did you see the post I did today about Chandra and Kat? So when I was in Italy, I was hanging out at Steve Argyle and Jason Engel's booth for a while in between things, and Steve's wife, Kat, is the model for one of the Chandras,
Nice.
and it's literally her just going.
Yeah.
And if you see her and she does the pose, you're like, oh my god.
Now
Right.
she has to cosplay as it.
So I did Narset part of the Veils.
Yep.
Oh, I love her too.
Minus
She's so
tour.
pretty.
They also told me a
So
story
look at the
about
top 4. I can reveal a
find it.
non-creature, non-land from among them and put it into my hand.
Uh-oh, this is gonna be
The
a
rest on
problem
the
for
bottom of
me.
my library in a
Can't
random
draw
order.
more than one card
Each turn. Yep.
each turn. So,
I'm just looking for syntax. What is it? Artist. What's the artist syntax?
wait a second. You also played a Chandra?
Yeah, and I played a Chandra.
There we go.
What does that Chandra do?
So here's a fun one. As soon as I find it, I will show you. You're gonna laugh your ass off.
Alright, should I do the Chaos Muppet one or the Stop Everything one?
Chaos Muppet.
Alright, I picked Jace Belair to put in my hand.
There you go.
What does
From
he
where?
do?
From Narset.
What does
Gotcha.
he do again? Can I see him? Since
So
clearly
before I
you
pull
had
that
to
card up,
reveal.
that's the other Steve Argyle card where literally they tied her into the tree because she couldn't hold the pose. So they literally
No one can hold that pose.
Right.
Yeah.
They wrapped
That
rope
is
around
not a
her.
natural
right.
pose.
They wrapped rope around her. She's like, this sucks. So they had to tie her to the tree so she
Oh
could
my
hold
God.
the pose.
Couldn't you just have taken a photo and then
Well, they
painted
did, but you have to frame it up.
Oh.
Nice.
All right. What did you play, Jace?
And I didn't play Jace.
Or you put
it in your
It's
hand?
in my hand, but I
Which
did play
one?
Chandra Fire Artisan,
I'll bring that one up.
Jace Beleren.
Fire Artisan, right? That one.
So you're exiling the top card,
Yeah, that would be dumb.
so you could wait.
I could wait. I don't have to do anything.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep, I'm gonna wait. I'm just gonna stay at 4. Alright, pass turn.
What do we got? That's the thing. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is... Black and black. I'm going to play an Apprentice Necromancer.
What does that do?
I can sack it to bring a creature from my graveyard back to play. Let's count it up, shall we?
Yes.
And then... I'm going to attack Jayberry for 8.
I thought we were allies.
Yeah, we'll get there, watch. For
Yeah,
8.
yeah, blah, blah.
He's gonna find a way to kill me without having to go
Yeah.
through my thing.
Killing Wave. Pay 7 life for each creature you'd like to keep.
Okay.
Yep.
Pay 7 life for each creature you want to keep. And I will let Gary die.
Of course. Yeah, we're gonna die to Gary next turn.
I will let that die.
What's dying
And
again?
I'll let
I take Gary.
that... Sure!
Like,
Uh...
like. I
now I'm
take
gonna
it.
have to keep... I forget. Go ahead. You can get up Gary. I'm still gonna kill you next turn.
I know, but I'm still gonna take
I get
Gary.
Gary when he comes back. So Gary's exiled. Well,
Yes.
hold on. Do you have mana? What do you need?
No, it just happens.
Gotcha. And you can make copies of it.
Yes.
Gotcha. All right. You got it.
So do I die?
Wait.
Is it your devotion to black? You don't have any black.
I don't, but
Yeah.
I don't want him to have it.
I'm at 36.
So creatures though.
7
How
life
are-
for each
how are you
creature
at-
you'd like to keep.
Oh, okay.
2, 3.
I
Okay.
kept 3 creatures.
Keeping 1. Keeping my commander.
So,
you
all right,
are
there
at
you
the
go.
7.
Actually, you know what? Let's make it 6 for each creature you'd like to keep.
So get one,
Okay.
keep one.
And I'll get 3
So
of those
you're at
back.
8.
Well, I don't know. Was it board wipe?
Yes.
Yeah, I guess it was a board wipe.
Okay. Fine. Are you done? Untap? Well, I should have done upkeep actually, so after.
I think. That was a lovely draw. That was a very fortuitous draw.
Okay. Not that I think it's gonna matter, but let's see. Let me do a quick mana count again. That's 3.
It was 9.
I played a mana last turn, so I think I'm actually at 10. And I'm glad I did not
Uh-oh.
held back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Great.
You got it. Do you have a swamp?
No.
What is that?
Backwards.
And it's not. It needs
Wow.
a swamp to
You
use.
still don't have a black. You still have no black mana. Well, it would be nice to have black mana. Maybe not a swamp, but...
Yeah, I mean, this hand I've been doing fine.
That's funny.
Okay. So, going to tap 3. And
Black from Morph.
4.
Yeah, I mean, you do get Black from Morph on if you need a creature, but not a spell.
And 6.
Hey, Cave Girl.
Hello. Are you in a robe?
I am wearing my kimono since
Oh.
they're wearing pajama pants.
Look at these stickers. They look like Spirit. I will tell, or Pester. Sorry.
Oh, they do.
So.
You can sit and hang out with us for a little bit.
3. That's 6. Okay. I'm going to play a Soul of New Phyrexia.
Soul of New Phyrexia. I'll bring that up.
And then I'm going to pay 2 to
Copy it.
Guess I'll just say this is a 6/6.
Cool.
This little thing next to it. Yay, blockers, right?
Yup.
And then I will pay 2 to play an aerial engineer.
Woo.
So
No, I just took it down so I get the Bushmills behind it.
okay, pass turn.
No attacks?
I like
Everything just came in.
wanna keep actually though, what do you have?
I have...
Can anything be touch?
No, anything can be regenerated.
Oh, and you have the one
Yeah.
open. And we're both like, I'm not gonna attack you because, well, anyway, pass turn.
What the hell's in my graveyard?
Not Gary.
Card
Like,
from my graveyard. Yep.
Oh wait, shit. I forgot to scry too.
by the way, the other.
God, that enchantment is letting you run away with things. Like, you would be dead so long ago if you didn't have that enchantment, like, to stack your hand as you need it. It's a great enchantment.
Yeah.
Amazon to hand out as, hey.
Yeah, I've never played it before, so it's kind of
Amazing in a
yeah.
Planeswalker. It's amazing in a Super Friends deck.
That's pretty neat.
Hold on, let me bring it up. What is it, Oath of Jace?
Oath of Jace.
Yeah. Yep. You are exactly right. It's just ridiculous in a Super Friends deck.
Mm-hmm.
The cat stickers, but like the other ones, I'm like,
Alright, I'll play Jace Galerin.
Okay.
can't hand that out at school. And
Everyone draw a card.
Everybody draw a NPC, draw a card.
Yay! Wait, am I allowed to draw?
It was an effect off.
So yeah, it says each opponent can't draw more than one card each turn.
Oh, okay.
Is this other card I have, so I don't think.
Oh, crap. Which one is that?
So Narset Parter Veils.
Oh, right.
Oh, right. You shouldn't be drawing.
You killed that a long time ago.
Oh, right.
Yeah, but that's been long gone.
So I get to draw a card.
Yep,
What's up?
I believe you do.
You alright? You looked very
I
confused.
reset the clock on the mic. Oh, the
Power
power.
went
Yeah.
out. The power,
Why does it say it's 3:30? I'm so confused.
the
Alright,
power
so
went out
I
earlier.
ticked up Chandra to exile the top card of my library. I may play it this turn. It's a Dragon Master Outcast.
Nice.
I play it.
Ooh.
I think that just killed you.
And then
What?
I took.
Why? I don't think she's gonna murder me yet.
The time is exactly
take that down to
11:05.
one.
I think we
I'll
murdered
put
you.
Top 4 cards.
Oh.
And then the top 4 cards of my library. I reveal a non-creature,
bit more
non-land
of the
from among them
Bushmills.
and put it into my hand.
It's good, isn't it?
Yes.
It's about the same price as your wine, so it's really good whiskey.
Oh, that's the Italy.
Well, it's Irish from Charles de Gaulle Airport at the
Hello,
duty free,
Kevin
but
Blaze. I'm sure other people
Hello,
have
Kevin
said
Blaze.
hello, but
Hey, we met you at IlixCon.
indubitably.
I keep missing your
I
streams.
opened it. Would you want to try one?
Yeah,
But I am going to catch one eventually. Alright, I will take, I guess, an Executioner's Capsule and put it in my hand.
You got it.
And the rest on the bottom of my library in a random order. And I will pass the turn.
Cool. All right, untap,
Come on.
upkeep, draw.
Ah, shit.
Uh-oh. What?
Oh,
No, I just wish I...
Or
oh,
life
that's a
choice.
thing.
Yeah, I wish I had the mana.
You have one creature, Jayberry.
I do.
That's what allowed me to kill you right now. You playing the
Aw.
creature.
Aww.
I'm going to attack you with Thraximunder. You have to sack a creature.
Alright.
Oh, sorry, and the Zombie Master.
Alright.
So that's only 6, 7, 8, but when you sack a creature, Thraximunder gets a counter, and that's 9 damage.
Oh. Oh yeah, I'm dead.
Oh.
I think.
Thraxie's got a counter.
Yep, I got nothing.
Alright, after my
Should've
attack
played the
phase,
Executioner's capsule.
all
Killed
my
it.
zombies have regenerate.
Oh well.
Okay.
But I had
Alright,
mana.
after
For
my...
what?
What's that?
All your zombies have what?
The zombie regenerate from the Zombie Master.
Why do they need to regenerate?
If she Executioner's capsuled it.
If
Oh,
I had
I see.
if I had Executioner's capsule, then would I have lived?
No, because I would regenerate the zombie that you tried to kill.
Oh.
Right. I'm going to play a
Yeah.
Diregraph Colossus.
What does that do?
It comes into
But
play
it would have
with...
still killed me.
Yeah.
But would I still be dead?
Well,
Like,
yeah,
would the
because
damage
whatever
still
you
go
tried to kill...
through?
Yeah, whatever
If
you tried to kill is regenerated. It still attacks you and it didn't die.
Regeneration. We should look that up. I thought regeneration
Doesn't that stop
doesn't.
the...
Yeah. I
Well,
don't
I mean-
think that attack goes through when
Either you-
something's been regenerated.
Why? Why would that not be?
I
Hold on. Let me bring up...
wish we
what
had
was
a
I bringing up?
judge.
Judge!
Kevin Blaze, Judge.
Judge.
It says someone says it does.
Oh, it does. Then maybe you should have done it.
Well, I didn't do it, so I guess I'll just leave it. I didn't
Diregraph...
play it.
What is it? What did I play? Diregraph Colossus.
I assumed I would live another
We'll start.
turn.
Yeah, the game. We will start another game in
Yeah,
5
I
minutes.
assumed I would live another turn.
It's all right.
I wouldn't have mattered.
1, 2, 3. It comes into
Yes,
play with
that's
3
what
counters.
I thought. Like,
And whenever I cast a zombie, I get a 2/2 zombie token. Grimjin Corpseborn.
what does that do?
I should bring that up. So,
Grimgrin.
Grimgrin, and I cast a zombie, so I get a 2/2 zombie,
It enters tap.
but doesn't tap until after. It dies, it gets tapped and remains on the field after the
It
Death Shield gets popped, but
enters
doesn't
the
tap until
battlefield.
after.
No.
No.
It-
From the Diregraph Colossus. When I play a zombie, put a 2/2 black zombie creature tapped. So this one comes in tapped.
That's fine, but if you read your Grim guy,
No,
enters-
this enters tapped as well.
Yes.
Sorry, yes. Yeah, absolutely.
like,
All right, and
that matters when someone's
I
gonna
will
try to
pass
attack
turn.
you.
And I think
Okay, I get a Thopter. I should remember what's in my hand.
Alright, let me go pick something new to play. I think I'm only in for 2 games tonight.
it's okay. We can
For
solve it.
obvious
We might be in
reasons.
the
Yeah,
same.
I'm
Yeah.
perfectly happy to only play one more.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Let's see what I figure want to play.
I'm just waiting.
Any viewers, any preference
Does
for
yours
what I
still have
play?
purple?
No, but it all has regenerate.
That's fine.
Color-wise?
Don't care.
Sure.
Give me a color and I'll see what I have. Or a mix of colors. Yeah, where you... Do you go to... Are you planning on going to any, like, commander events? Chicken guy. Chicken the guy.
So if something's an artifact creature,
Yeah.
I have questions.
It's okay.
Like,
Go ahead and ask. I mean, I'm just
Okay.
I'm playing big dumb stupid black, so like
well, so this one, it says choose one or both. Create a token that's a copy of a target artifact.
right.
Create a token
Yes,
that's
you can
a
make two
copy.
more. You
Yeah,
can make 2 more of those.
like,
Yes.
like,
You
wait
can
a
make
second.
2 more of those.
Is
Yeah.
that what this does?
Yes, indeed.
Okay. I
Alright,
don't
so,
know if it's gonna save me.
It might. You never know.
But
Alright, so chicken the guy. What should I play? What colors do you like to play? What colors do you like to see me play if I have them? You're in near Florida. We are near the DC metro area.
Gruul. I love that it auto-corrected Gruul to gruel, the word, like the food.
So red,
Sorry, I want to do this.
red, green, right? I wonder if I have my red green deck. I don't know if I brought
What is
it.
your red-green deck?
Halar.
Cool. Counters. No, really? Not a proliferate deck.
Let's do that.
That is Jay Burry's.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Watch this and you pick it up tomorrow.
Sure.
Bye.
Thanks.
Okay, let me figure this out. Okay, so
Let's see if I brought my Gruul deck.
Sorry, guys, I'm doing magic math, which is always exciting. Okay.
Math is magic.
Yep. Okay, so first I'm going to tap this to get. Oh, wait, no. That's not how I want to do that. So, 2, it would be the blue-red, and then I will take one of these mountains and play Saheeli,
Yep. Saheeli, which one?
Blind Artificer.
You hate that word.
Yes, I do.
They all just flipped out of my grasp.
And then I'm like terrible at pronouncing it, but this is a fun game.
Oh,
Then
that one.
I'm going to tap 6.
Well, sorry to say, I forgot. I did not bring my
To
Gruul deck.
Create 2
So-
2 copies.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'll tell you.
So you have.
So I'll tell you what I brought, and you can tell me what to play.
So you have 3 Soul of New Pyrex, 4 Soul of New Pyrexias.
And since I
got a lot. Alright.
cast a non-creature spell, I get a servo.
I got
Yep.
a mono blue deck. I have
So these came in.
a Rakdos colored deck. I have Orzhov deck. I have the Geyer deck, which is I can't remember the term for it, but it's red, green, white. I have the Edgar Markov deck. I have a mono green elf deck. I have a 3-color green, white, and blue Arcades the Strategist deck. I have Savin the Chroniclasm deck, which is blue, red,
So
white.
here's what I'm gonna do.
and I have a 4-color aggro deck.
Make friends with gameplay.
Shut it. I am going to attack with 2
Or
6/6
just pick a box that you
tramplers
like.
Why do they trample?
because they
It's
trample.
indestructible. Oh, I thought it was just indestructible.
No,
Arcades
Okay, you got it.
tramplers
Sure.
and 1 flying copter.
How much mana do you have?
2.
Alright, cool. I'm gonna double block one of them and kill it and take 6.
Okay, double block with
I'm
what?
gonna double block the original with a 5/5 and a 1/1.
Okay, I didn't realize it was 5/5.
That's. Do you want to rejigger that attack?
Maybe.
Oh god, Arcades, really? Fucker.
Fine, I'm sending the 6/6 trampling artifact
I'll double block and kill it.
and then the flying one.
Take.
So, and then I get to draw a card.
Yep. Done?
Yes.
Sorry. Grimjin does not untap.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm gonna play a Nim Deathmantle. I should bring that up because you're gonna want to know what that does.
Something awful.
Yeah, I kill your creature and I get it back under the Nim Death Mantle as a zombie.
Non-token though.
My graveyard, sorry. Alright.
I just want to share the most bizarre coupon I've ever gotten in the mail.
What's that?
Nothing bunt cakes.
So you're
With the
getting
Verbos,
nothing?
all my creatures have lifelink.
Huh?
Are you getting
Yay.
nothing?
And I think for right now, I'm just gonna sit, have another turn.
It's a very decorative
Always
bunt
get
cake.
suspicious.
But they're called nothing bunt cakes. Get it?
Nothing bunt. Oh, that's terrible.
Nothing
Wait
bunt.
for it.
Nothing but cake.
Hold it under the thing.
Oh, okay.
Nothing bunt.
Nothing bunt
Oh
cakes.
god, that's terrible.
Horrible.
Oh, it's
It took me
ridiculous.
too long to get that. It's really bad.
You're sick. It's okay.
I said it sounds really bad. I don't want it.
But yes,
Yeah.
I got a free. You get a free buntlet, which is the
oh
thing.
my god.
A buntlet?
Is it
It's
a small
small.
bunt
I'd
cake?
like a buntlet.
Is a free buntlet.
Yeah. Oh my god.
I just put our
These are
address on
terrible
screen.
jokes.
Sorry.
Oops.
Really? You just did that?
But
God bless you.
No one could read it. It's not our read's not that clear.
Yeah.
but yeah. So
I think I said I
Bunt
had
cakes.
11 mana.
The
I
pain in
will happily make bunt jokes with you.
the pain in your voice is the icing on my cake.
Oh,
that?
Chicken guy,
one of our
one of our new viewers from the Florida area. So if you're a dude and you do something in Florida, I can say Florida man.
Florida dude.
What do I want to do? Because sitting is hard, but all your creatures have lifelink.
Yes. And regenerate.
I don't care about the regenerate part.
Well, it stops me from dying.
Do you have flying?
I do not.
Okay. Except I don't want to use all of my flyers, because what if you have a way to make things flying? That'd be terrifying.
Yeah, right. I have a way to make the. Well, actually, I do.
Yeah,
Not well.
because blue, right? You have the one card that...
There's no non-zombies in here except for the Archfiend.
Okay, I am going to attack you for 6 flying.
How is it 6?
Because this guy gets +2
Wait,
and
who is that guy?
flying. The aerial engineer.
Hold on, I gotta bring it up.
He is a crafty bastard.
Aerial Engineer. I have no idea what the fuck that does. As long as you. Oh, so he's a 4/4. Shit. That's a
And
thing.
2 Thopters.
I take 6 and go to 32.
And I draw a card.
Yep.
Haven't played a land per turn, so I'm now up to 12 mana.
Cool.
And I will. Just. I'm going to do things this way and tap 3 though to do Chief of the Foundry.
Yep.
So artifact creatures have +1.
Wow, that's a thing.
I mean,
You should have done it before combat, but.
Oh shit! Oh well. The things you learn.
Things you learn. You done?
Yeah. That's it.
Alright. Doesn't untap. Draw. Oh, that's a thing. I'm not worried about it right now. Alright, so first thing we're gonna do is. Hey, look! It's an Eternal Skylord! All of my zombie tokens get flying!
Ah, no.
I knew it.
And I amass when he comes into play. There's my amassed
knew it.
zombie.
So I think I'm dead. Like if they're all
I
flying.
think you're dead.
Well, hold on. I'm going to sacrifice the amassed zombie to untap Grimjin. I did play another zombie, so that one comes in tapped.
No, you already played an additional.
No. So
A mass does not count as playing an additional zombie.
when I amass, I create a zombie army.
Oh, okay. I thought.
Yeah.
And when I cast
the
the zombie, I create a zombie token.
Is it cast or
Just
brought in?
get the murdering over.
Get the murdering over.
Yeah.
All right, hold on.
It's like get the murdering over.
Okay,
Just
so
murder me already.
Yeah,
Then-
because
I'm gonna
I only
want
have.
you to die slowly.
I'm gonna attack you for 7, and I'm gonna
Not
blow up the
wrong.
thing that gives all of your artifact. When it attacks, I'm gonna blow up the thing that gives all your artifacts +1. So it's a 6/6 attacking.
Wait. Why wouldn't you kill the one measly thopter that's keeping me? I have 8 life.
No, it's only my tokens that fly.
Oh,
Only my zombie tokens fly.
never mind. So fine, you blow up that.
Yep.
Oh, actually, what does the blow up? Is it
It-
sacrifice or destroy?
Sacrifice another creature to untap Grimgrin, put a Grimgrin and put +1. When it attacks, destroy target creature defending player controls and put another counter on it.
I can make it indestructible.
How? I thought that
Pay
only made
5.
that.
What?
I thought it only made that indestructible.
Permanents control gain indestructible to end of turn.
Sure, pay your 5.
Yeah.
Alright, doesn't get another counter.
Okay. 5 paid.
Okay. Alright. Declare blocks.
Sure, you can just regenerate it, but
Well, I need the 6 life.
permanents you control
Right.
are indestructible until the
So,
end of turn.
bounce it off
so-
anything, I will
yeah.
gain 6 life, go to 38, and I will pass my turn again. And hold on.
Actually, I'm not going to bounce it off anything because I want you to
better.
specifically regenerate it. Like, spend mana to do whatever
Yeah,
you
you
need to
tell
do.
me what you want to bounce it off of.
So,
I pay the 1 black, regenerate it,
yeah.
and I gain 6 life. Pass turn.
Yeah, there we go. Untap.
Oh, and I sacked 2 creatures. I'm missing my Thraxum under triggers. And a creature you was not sacrificed, it was destroyed. Never mind, it wasn't even destroyed.
Yep.
Okay.
So, this came
It's a
in.
Hester.
Yes. As soon as I saw it, I'm like, yeah, you need both of those.
So
Yes.
the Coven House has a cat with 2 different color eyeballs, just like that.
Just like that.
Just like this.
Aw, cute little kitty.
Cute little kitty. And I sent Cave Girl a message the other
You
day
look very cute.
that she could adopt another cat with the same 2 different color
No.
eyeballs that was also white. You can have a matching set of 2 different color eyeball kitties.
Your tokens now
You know what
fly.
that would look
Yep.
like?
I only have 1 token though.
Oh.
That would look
Oh,
like.
but this thing flies. No, no,
Oh.
No,
the
it doesn't.
Skylord does not fly.
Hester, I don't think is in the
how
room
big is it?
anymore.
That's
3/3.
right there.
Oh, she's right there.
But they all regenerate.
Hester's
That's fine.
hanging out on the
Actually,
floor.
Sorry. I need to make sure I have 4
Out of
black. 4
sight.
black.
She's a rescue kitty, and she's challenging to love sometimes.
She's on Prozac.
I am.
She's on Prozac.
How many tokens do you have?
Just 2 right now.
Okay, then I'm sending 2 thumpers.
But if you ever hear us meow, it's because
Cool.
Hester meowed for
So
attention.
they're 2/2
and
right
we
now?
meowed back.
Yes.
Alright, I lose 2, I gain 2.
Sometimes you can see her walking in the background.
I lose 2, I gain 2.
Back
Well,
there.
That's fine, and pay your.
Pay 1 to regenerate.
Yeah, I guess you can do tokens, but
Yep,
I
they're
still.
zombies.
But she
Get
doesn't
a card.
usually like to be picked up.
No.
Picking up Hester is
Yeah,
bad.
no, that... Did we talk about the Prozac
I
already?
can do it and you can see.
Please don't. I don't want to be treating you. I don't want to treat you with, Yeah.
There will be scratching.
There she is. Just wave hi.
That's Cave Girl. That's not Hester.
That was not
Three
useful.
Yeah, good for you. All 9 cats, rescue cats, good for you.
Yeah,
Wow.
awesome.
Okay.
Would you like to sit and hang out with us?
Briefly. Let me grab
That
See,
is
if I
it.
move out of the
Pass
way,
turn.
you might
Thank
see
you.
Hester
Thank you for
on the
this.
floor.
Untap.
I'm almost willing to just let you murder me
Yeah,
so
we
we
just
can
want
get
to say, let's be
different.
done and get Jayberry back in.
Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just
Yeah.
it's just literally
We'll
a
have to
waiting
make
game.
her walk
Yeah.
in a different
What do you got?
direction. for you to
There you
see
go.
her
I'm
on
gonna
the
mass
floor.
another, and all my zombies have death touch.
Anyway.
What?
Amass again, all my zombies have death touch.
Yeah, but I can keep making my stuff indestructible.
Soul ring.
If you watch long enough, you might see Hester. Oh, you saw the floof?
Zombies get +1 in death touch again.
Creature tokens.
Yeah, we're just gonna sit here and have a day talk for like an hour.
I keep making my stuff indestructible.
You are Warden of the North. Merry Christmas.
All right, they both win.
Like, he didn't have any cards that could hit me with, since I took the one card where he'd bounce it and take my life indirectly.
But he's probably got a card in there that says destroy target creature, right?
Yeah, but it's indestructible. Yeah, so it just...
I pay the mana.
Exile?
He didn't have any coming up is the issue.
Oh.
Like, so we would have sat there for, like,
literally another 20 minutes.
Yeah.
The bonus hunger would have helped. Sack half your creatures rounded up. Alright, are we doing Commander?
You know what? Tevio
right?
then would be good in
Commander?
this deck. Yeah. Because then she'd be like, I'm not sacking crap.
I've been asked to play Commander, so...
Alright, off we go. Then Commander 'tis, and I will choose one momentarily.
I think this will be our last game.
Again?
Yeah, try it again, so you can actually get to see what it does, because you were just oppressed the first hour of the game.
It came back.
It did come back.
Like... I have other decks with me.
Yeah, but if you want to test it out.
Yeah. I think I might take that one card out, because I was like, I guess I have too many creatures in my deck to make that card
If you're doing Super Friends, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the list I base this deck on is like only 4 creatures, but I have a lot more creatures in my version because I wasn't gonna pay stupid amounts of money for some of the planeswalkers.
Well, you can proxy them. We don't care here.
I know, but I kind of wanted to do my own thing a little bit. One floof is sleeping 2 feet from me. Aww.
I have different floofs.
NPC rescues birdies.
Yes. I like birdies.
She has a birdie cam too.
Yes. Birdies are good.
Oh, hey, here's my signed copy of The Angelic Wall.
Nice.
So we went to Dragon Con, which is in Atlanta on Labor Day weekends, and we were wandering around the dealer's room, and NBC, who has a great eye, noticed that this art was cool, and we looked at it, and then noticed that one of the pieces of art on the wall was Bella the Nightclad. And they were like, you're a magic artist. Well, actually, he wasn't, the artist wasn't there yet. His wife was manning the booth, and he was coming the next day. And so we talked to her for a while, and she was really cool. And then we came back the next day when he was there, and we bought a bunch of proofs, and we talked to him, and they were really cool.
As soon as I come back in, we're going to wish Vicky a speedy recovery, because she's actually, she went to the doctor the other day for something with her foot. So we're going to say speedy recovery and send her to foot.
Okay.
This is the floof that I can't pick up, if you can see that.
Yeah, it's a white kitty with 1 green eye and 1 bright blue eye.
That is
she's got like a toupee.
Yeah. Floofy.
That's the floof.
Yes. She's warming.
She's what?
Better.
She's warming.
It's only taken her a couple years.
Hey.
She's slow.
Yeah.
I can't judge. Like I said, my cockatiels. Like,
yeah.
It took a while before they understood. Yeah.
If you take any of my cards, we need to make sure we know.
Oh.
We keep track.
Yeah.
Because we are using the same sleeves.
Here she
Were you
goes.
there on Saturday at OatsCon when Tatiana handed me this? She's like, I want to take it back to California.
Yeah.
So
We got moonshine cherries. Cool sleeves.
Here, say hi, people.
Hi. Look here. Hello.
Oh, she's gonna jump on the chair.
She'll jump right in my spot.
I have a candy.
She won't go after candy. That's be like cheese or meat. You realize you're doing the thing like when you don't want her to do it, she will. If you want her to, she never will.
I know.
She's a cat.
She's sniffing your feet.
Yes. Do they smell like feet? Yeah, this hand's not gonna work. I see my life being the same as the last game.
Yeah. Come on, jump in the chair. Come on, do it.
Be the cat from the
Take
meme.
his chair.
Be the cat from the meme.
I know. Your cat could be the cat from the meme.
I'm trying to hold off coming back in.
Smudge the cat.
I have
That's the
no
name of it.
clue.
Oh.
I don't know. Who brought the huge... I can't... 1,000 for 100% Choco?
What is
Oh, that's
this?
me.
Her name's
That's me.
Hester. Her name's Hester. As in Prince.
Hester Prin.
Am I coming back in? Can I come back in?
Yeah, come back
she's
in.
on-
She's not gonna do
On
it.
the table.
No, she's not coming up to the table.
Hang on.
I'm gonna put these back here, otherwise I will eat them all.
Yeah, I'll keep this.
I also have a Traxo with me.
Try it. I chose not to play my
Ooh,
attraction.
I'll get to play something
Ooh, wait a second.
that'll be fun. That
I
has
have Taze.
Try it.
I'm gonna play something that has a fun story to it.
Do it.
You know, when it's. I guess I get to go first, huh?
Yeah, you go
Alright.
first. Or I'm Glorclaw.
So,
I know what you're doing
untap,
here first, I
keep,
was like,
draw.
You should
I'll
make her go
play
upstairs and get the horns so that
planes.
she looks like her picture on the playmat.
Oh, wait. I have to Revy that I'm not sure works.
Alright, so I played a planes, and then I tapped it for a resolute watchdog.
Are you playing already?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I should probably get my deck out.
And I'm gonna tell a story
Okay, tell your
while
story.
you get your stuff together.
Oh, I forgot to shuffle in these cards. That were
Okay.
in my hand.
So, once upon a time, I bought my first original magic art, which was a sketch
Oh, right.
of. It was actually a sketch, 4 different sketches on one 8.5 by 11 piece of paper
Milosh.
of this card, Resolute Watchdog. It's
Here, hold
by.
it up one more time. Whoop, wait.
It's by Milivoje Seran.
Milvosh.
Milvosh
Milvosh Sharan.
Sharan. Whatever. So, he's a nice guy, by the way. So I have 4 little thumbnail sketches of what this card could look like, including this design. And then I got a signed copy of a foil version of this card.
Wait, what are you
And
Slimefoot.
a little, you know,
Saplings.
and a little like small print of
I
it.
just
And I had it all
replay
framed up all nice, and it's
Okay.
sitting on
I
my
get
wall at
bored.
home.
Gabe, really?
Yay.
That's a very cool story.
Yeah.
Alright.
Derevi or Teza? And
Whichever
Derevi,
one
I
you
don't
do.
even know.
Whichever one. Which one is gonna make? Which one is gonna bring you joy?
I mean,
I feel red now, like I'm.
Because I like dogs.
I don't
Cats
know.
are cool, but I like dogs more. And this is a dog. He's a good dog.
Fine.
He's a watchdog. He'll protect me.
The watchdog will protect you
Yes.
resolutely.
Yes, resolutely. Resolute protection.
I haven't played this deck recently. I've only played it once.
Oh, let's go through the commanders. So, no, we're not playing the Aerial Engineer as a commander. I am playing Slimefoot.
Uh-oh.
Slimefoot, the stowaway. So whenever Sapperling I control dies, Slimefoot does a damage to each opponent and I gain a life. For 4 mana, I can create a 1/1 Sapperling creature.
Nice.
So there you go. He's one of the very few fun, uncommon commanders. He is nasty.
And he has flavor text.
He does! Alright, so what are you playing, NPC?
Derevi. And it's not like the horribly broken kind.
It's gorgeous
because
art. I love that
that's boring. But Bird Wizard. We were talking about birds, so birds.
Yep.
Bird wizard.
And you are playing...
Arcades the strategist.
Solid Plasma. I did not make him.
So wait, hold on. I'm literally playing black-green against 2 Bant decks.
Yeah,
Great.
you're in trouble.
Oh, that's gonna be fun. Right. Lucky me. Alright, fine. Fuck all y'all.
Yep.
I need a swamp. Or a forest, so I am gonna discard. Oh, fucking hell. You ready?
Is Slimefoot an uncommon commander?
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm gonna discard a Triumph of the Hordes for a,
Oh, wow.
for a forest.
Yeah.
That way I won't have the cheesy I kill you with infect commander.
Yeah, I have a couple of uncommon commanders. I have Halar the Fire Fletcher and Arvad the
Fine,
Curse.
I'll keep this hand.
I like playing them.
Arvod's a shit ton of fun.
Aren't you gonna shuffle back in the
Halar's, I
thing?
think, a lot more
yeah,
fun and a
sorry.
lot more deadly.
I shall. Give me a
Because,
moment.
I mean, Arvod's cool because it's a legendary.
And Jayberry, yeah, you go first. Since you died.
I just went first.
Alrighty.
I already took my turn.
Okay.
I'm
Alright,
waiting
I'm
on
taking my
you.
turn, damn it.
She looked like a
Uh,
little bear.
I am going to play a forest. Sorry. I'm going to play.
Wait, where'd you stick that card you weren't shuffling?
Like literally in the middle. So.
Yeah, both of those are from Dominaria.
I'm going to play a swamp. I'm going to tap the
I
swamp
guess so is
for a
Slimefoot.
Pyrexian Reclamation and just let it sit there and pass turn.
What's that
Is
do
Slimefoot from Dominaria
Yes,
too?
Slimefoot is from Dominaria, and I will bring up the Pyrexian Reclamation. Wow, what the hell are you doing, cat? The light was shaking as the cat did something. I don't know what she did.
Oh, her tail. hit the-
Oh, her tail hit the light. That's funny. Alright, hold on, let me bring up my card. I played a... It's funny. Both games I played a Pyrexian card, like second or third turn, first or third turn.
So I drew an upkeep. I'm going to play an Evolving Wilds. I'm gonna crack
Delver, where's the Reclamation? Metamorph.
Whoop.
Processor, there it is. The Reclamation. I
Of
played.
course. That's how it goes.
RK Post.
That's gorgeous too. Like, look at that.
That's art's nice.
So
Death is no excuse to stop work. Man, it's corporate America.
I played an Evolving Wilds, cracked it, and got my island.
Floof doing floof things.
Yes.
Floof.
Floofing. Floofing about.
Floofing.
Is anything like eating?
No.
Eat.
Shut up, millennial.
Yeah.
Shut up, boomer. I'm not a boomer, so.
I'm not a millennial.
I know, I just wanted to yell shut up, millennial at somebody.
Okay, boomer.
I'm not a
You're
boomer.
not a boomer either.
Okay, Elker.
Elker.
I will remind you that I made an elk deck before they were cool.
and then Ryan and Maya's comment was, "Okay, Elker," of various
Elker.
versions. Alright.
Hey,
It's just
I
like-
made 5 color dragons before it was cool.
So I didn't talk about this with Gavin, and I should have. Be like, you know, you realize you guys did Oko. I know you did Oko because elks were just useless. And you wanted to make the most useless thing in Magic fun.
Well, what about like bears outside of Goreclaw?
No, bears are stupidly... At a pre-release, I have
Gate
never...
Creeper Vine, go.
What is that?
I
It's-
searched for a basic land or a gate card. Which I'm not sure if I actually have any gate cards in here.
And
Shut up,
it goes
millennial.
into your hand. It's your turn.
Ayula would like a word, huh?
The bear.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, bears are
Well,
awesome.
yes, that's why Ayula came out. Like, things became bears. Like,
I will play
She's a
the
newer
Lightning
card.
Greaves in past turn.
great.
I'm sorry, what was that? I'm sorry?
Meow.
They're stupidly cute.
I'm going to put a forest, and then I'm going to tap 2 and play Kazandu Tuskcaller.
Ah, yeah. Man, I gotta read that again. Hold on, let me bring it up.
Yeah.
I forget what it does. K-A-Z-A-N?
Kazan. Yeah, there we go.
Tuskcaller, right?
Yep. Oh, hello.
Sorry. Oh, right. She's the one. She makes... So are we all playing token decks?
Yeah. I
We're
think-
all playing like super...
No, she's not.
I'm not.
You and I are playing super duper token decks. Are you drinking mezcal?
No. Lemonade.
Okay.
I'm not. Like, I have a few cards that will do tokens, but not
Gotcha.
like crazy tokens.
Okay.
So, pass turn?
Alright.
Guess you still haven't
No.
found her.
Well, I can pick one.
Oh, God.
Found 2
What?
options.
One of our local game stores flooded again tonight in the rain.
Oh no!
Up in Glen Burnie.
Oh no!
Oh no!
We'll see how it goes.
I'm gonna have to clip that. Oh no!
And send it to them.
Hopefully
Alright.
not that bad.
That sucks.
Oh, put it in my hand. Burp.
Yep.
Not nearly as bad as last time.
Okay, good.
Brand new roof leak.
Ah.
I hope them do their
Pouring
least.
down the back wall of the stock
I
room.
hope them do their least too. What room?
The stock room.
There couldn't possibly be a shit ton of cardboard in that room. Cards, games.
Oh my god.
That's horribly
I
frustrating.
can't even fathom what would happen if, a pallet of magic boxes got rained on.
I hope they have good, like, insurance.
They do. I mean, and the building should be paying for it if it's...
Probably, because if they're responsible for maintaining it...
Well, there's a lot of things at play, but we'll see.
I know. Leases are, like, damageable things. Everyone, read every bullet point of your lease, because that's how they get you.
So wait, are you telling me it's thunderstorming in Florida as well? That's amusing.
Also, take a lot of photos before you move in.
And you know what else you do? Like, one of the things that people forget, just take a video of all your possessions and throw it, like, in a cloud storage solution or in a fire safe. Like, that way you don't actually have to produce receipts or whatever. You can be like, here, look.
You still, unfortunately, like, in most cases, like...
You can take stills. So when we had our flood downstairs, I actually took stills of the video. Like, here, that's still, that's still, that's still.
It's still a little more complicated.
Wasn't that bad for us, but that was USAA.
Yeah. So, Banshee, we might get snow over the weekend.
Really?
Yes. It's gonna get cold enough to where...
I am Kodama's reaching and passing turn.
Last I heard it,
Untap.
they changed the model. We're not gonna get anything.
Oh,
Really?
okay.
Yeah.
I put a forest in play and a swamp in my hand.
It's gonna be north and west of here if there is anything.
So I suspect you're going to get replacement costs for that laptop if anything happened and you're like $1. So Chickeny Guy, if you want to hear the worst absolute story about laptops, a friend of mine, like 17 or 18 years ago, sold his Power 9 for a state-of-the-art, top-of-the-line Pentium 4 laptop for college.
Ouch.
Yep. And right now he could pay for all of college if he sold those cards.
Ouch.
Put in a Seaside Citadel. I'm going to pay 2 to level her up. So she starts at level 1.
She starts at 0 and goes to 1. Levels start at 0 and you pay your first one and goes, yeah.
Fine. She's still a 1/1.
She is a 1/1.
Does anyone have creatures? You have creatures.
Yep.
I'm definitely pinging you for 1.
I haven't done anything yet this game.
Is she hasty?
I played her last turn.
Oh, I didn't notice. Sorry.
So.
39.
And then... Oh, right. I should reset my life. Past turn. She's gonna get free some more creatures.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Elephant. Sorry.
Oh.
4. Not elephant. It's been a long week.
Twitch crashed on you? So the story was that, what was the word? A friend of mine sold his Power 9 for state-of-the-art, top-of-the-line Pentium 4 laptop.
Yes!
Oh, no!
Yeah.
3, 4, 5.
Okay.
Path turn.
You realize now I'm going to have to make all the pain come your way.
I know. And I'll keep putting them. We could play that game.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, but
you know, I would have liked to have been
go.
drawing land every turn last game, but I was not. God. Pass turn.
Does this? I don't think that works because that means we'll be changing.
Are you talking to
sounds.
us or yourself?
Myself. Myself. Always myself.
Guess what? It's kind of cute.
Chicken butt.
Want to get married? Okay.
So before I do this, I'm going to ask you, because it's going to affect her, because she's been messing with me.
Okay.
I told you what!
So when I do this, like, if I select the commander, it goes back to command zone. But then she'd have to
recast it.
So
And remember that creature, does that tap for mana or does it ramp some searches for you?
She already did the ramp.
Okay.
That one's done.
When it comes in, it doesn't tap for mana?
No.
No,
Okay.
I search.
Yeah, she already did
I
that.
did the searching.
Yeah, so I would, Well, I mean, that's your only real choice.
Yeah, like...
Nobody else has a creature in play.
So So I'm untapping this.
Ooh, sorry. See, good thing I have a compressor and limiter on it.
Then I'm going to tap 3
Okay.
to do a Fiend Hunter and basically exile your command.
Until that leaves play. So you could either let the commander be exiled under it or put it back in the command zone.
Command zone.
Figured.
I only have things that bounce creatures in this deck.
That's good.
Let's see. And then from Hell's Heart, I stab at the... I'm hitting you for 1.
Me?
Yes!
Yes, you're being hit for 1.
You! The person who hit me for 5! Like me, I'm sitting here poking people for 1, and then it's like 5.
Well, because you don't realize that all the defender stuff hits with Arcades.
Oh no, I do realize. So as soon as that happened, I was like,
Let's just bring that up one more time
Yeah.
so everybody knows.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that fucker. It's also it's a stupid card draw engine too.
Yeah.
So I literally have an enchantment, an artifact, and 5 mana. And that's it.
Wow. Prairie Stream.
Come in tapped.
Nope.
Why?
I have 2 or more basic
You
lands.
got it. Here, wait, can I pull that up? Just poke it. Look! You ate my chicken! No, displaced it. Displacer Beast Humor!
Okay.
Mentor of the Meek.
You got it.
I will pay 2. Creature of power 2 or less came in. I paid the 1 to draw a card.
When? Oh, the wall.
Yep. And I will pass the turn.
Cool. I am, before my turn, as an instant, playing Scatter the Seeds, putting 3 Saprolings in play. And then I will untap, upkeep, draw. I will play a Forest. Oh, those are elephants. Sorry, they're Saprolings, not elephants. I wouldn't mind having 3/3/3 elephants.
But no.
I think I'm gonna do that. Play a Falcon Wrath Noble,
What does that one do again?
but Lightning Greaves. It's part of the Aristocrats set. If a creature dies, I get a life and assign a point of damage. I'll be
Oh, that guy.
Oh, wait. Falcon Wrath, what is it? Noble. Sorry. Come on. Him. I like the purple.
Yes.
So there we go. I put Lightning Greaves on him. I am not attacking. I am going to sit tight and do absolutely nothing. And actually, fuck it. Pay for it that way, and then I'll pay 2 and play a Necrogenesis.
What does that do?
I will show you.
Because it sounds worse.
It is not.
You say.
I have to exile a creature card from a graveyard to
yeah,
create
I
a
know what
token.
that one is.
And on that note, I shall pass turn.
Okay. Cute. Draw. Okay.
I mean, you realize Arcades is coming back next turn, right?
Whatever.
I'm just saying.
Do I seem worried? No. I am not. Yet, at least. I just need to understand what I want to do. What do
What's
you
the
have
biggest-
out?
Me?
Yeah.
I've got 3 Saprolings and a 2/2 Vampire. And 2 artifacts and an artifact and 2 enchantments.
Okay.
But if you're killing artifacts, I recommend you go for the wall first.
Oh yeah, but I'm not I'm not fussed at the moment.
Nope. Nobody's fucking with you yet. Bigger Blood Artist. Well, you know, it's a 2/2 flyer, but it's also 4 mana, so... Pretty much not seeing play in anything but Commander.
I think the way I'm gonna... How do I want to do this?
What is she staring at?
Who
Is
knows
there a
what's
cat
out there?
out there?
No, I doubt it. It's probably more like a possum.
Oh,
Yeah, it's like Dr. Doolittle out there. It's like foxes, possum, deer,
Yeah.
raccoons,
That part,
you name it.
I understand. Okay.
Is the tail twitching?
Yeah.
Oh, nope, she walked away.
I love the fact that this song is called Mother of Harlots.
Actually,
It's very different than Mother of Runes.
And actually, I'm going to bring this card up just because it's hilarious.
Going to tap 2. I'm
Speaking of
going
Mother of Runes.
to level up my...
It
Yeah.
is the Mother of Goons from the
my God.
Unset.
I'm going to level up my...
I think it's hilarious.
Lady, and I'm going to give myself a 3/3 elephant.
Good to have a 3/3 elephant. Elephants are your friends.
Yep. And then I'm going to leave this beautiful 3 mana open. Because stuff and things.
And it's a blue, green, white.
Yeah, it is.
Imagine that.
Actually, although Derevi...
You need the 4th for that, right?
No, I
No,
only need
it's-
3.
Blue, green, white, and 1.
No. To play Derevi, I only need 3.
Oh, to play it. Oh, you can play it right now, but I'm saying, have you
Yeah.
passed turn yet? She's still deciding if she wants to play a commander.
I haven't drawn yet. I just untapped.
Why are you looking at girls in underwear?
Is this an ad?
Oh. I don't know, that would have been kind of hot.
When I tell you what the ad is for, you wouldn't really...
Probably not.
Okay.
You know what? I am going to play Derevi this turn. I'm not going to worry about the other one. You only live once.
You only live once.
Draw.
That card, that deck, that has too many cards in its hand.
I know.
We need to stop the draw engine.
I only drew 1 card.
Your commander lets you draw when you play defender things.
Yeah, but I
You have
didn't
a
play
creature-
defend. I didn't get a chance to
I
even activate that
understand that.
ability.
I understand.
Didn't even get a chance.
Untag trigger, tap, what? Ooh, that was pretty. Arcades is back.
Yep.
Arcades is back.
Yeah.
Hades is back.
Please send Minotaur. I'd happily eat it for you. Unless is it like...
If you attack, I don't care. 2 things will die, and your mentor will die.
Mentor? What mentor? Oh, mentor the meek. I'm not attacking with that.
But maybe he has other ways to make it die. Actually, he stepped out and...
No, I forgot that Falcon Wrath Noble can't shoot a creature. It only shoots players.
Yep.
Yep. Alright, well. Why not? Targeting DM.
Sure.
A...
Do any of them trample?
Nope.
I will block with 3 Saprolings and shoot you in the face for 3 and gain 3 life.
Okay.
Oh, it gains life too?
It's the Falcon
Yeah.
Wrath.
How do you gain 3 life from the Falcon Row?
Whenever a creature dies, I gain a life and do a point of damage to a player.
Yep. I just need to keep the Saprolings down.
Done?
Yep.
Maybe I will leave you alone for a turn.
Any creatures in graveyards?
Nope.
Nope.
That's unfortunate. Three. I'm going to play Verdaloth the Ancient, kicked once for a Saproling. Verdaloth is a 4/7, and it kicks and brings 1 Saproling into play.
That's it? Does it do anything else?
It gives Saprolings and Tree Folk +1/+1.
There we go. There's more to the story.
Yes. So let me bring it up, show folks. It is not the Mother of Goons. It is Verdeloth the Ancient. Darren Bader. Woohoo! I like my Verdeloth the Ancient. Oh yeah, remember, you're not paying attention to the stream. Whenever you're, if Derevi's in, well, Derevi wasn't in play when she had your attack phase.
Yeah,
Oh wait, when it enters the battlefield, right? So untap your thingy.
Did you?
We missed a trigger. Thank you for reminding us.
What
of
did
the
you
trigger.
attack with?
I would have untapped probably that.
Did you
because I
attack
didn't
with
have-
that?
No, when Derevi enters, that also untaps.
Wait. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Got
And
it.
I didn't. So, like,
Okay. Got it. Yeah.
I played it after I did my beast token. And that's why when you have more mana, it's like, okay, I'll create another beast token. Yay!
Okay.
Just not paying attention.
Are you done? What are you doing?
I'm passing turn.
Okay. Untap.
Let's see, what color do we want? Oh, right.
Black or purple?
Well, regular Coven color.
Ooh, interesting. My own name.
Yay, you got your own team tonight.
Yep.
Since you're hanging out with us on the stream. And you can get another elephant at end of turn,
Yeah, you could have done that.
because you can tap it.
Yeah.
Oh. Thank you, friend.
That's why that card is ridiculous in that deck.
I know.
So when I did Derevi, I actually
But
did
I
did
keep
Derevi as
forgetting.
an elf tribal deck. And it worked really well.
Wow. Okay.
But I took it apart when Freyles came out and made that my elf tribal deck.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Protection.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Then, let's see. I will be doing a Terramorphic Expanse at the end of my turn. Because I don't want people to sit there watch me do this.
Yeah.
And then...
Yeah, Derevi is super, super competitive. Like, you can build probably one of the strongest top 10 Magic decks out of Derevi. In my experience, anyway.
I am tapping 5 to make everyone miserable.
Okay.
Oh, we're miserable already.
Acidic slime!
Oh, I'm okay with that.
Okay.
What are you gonna distract?
The artifact.
Yeah, but your boots are tempting too for the thing that's basically pinging us.
All you have to do is do 2
Side.
damage to everything.
What?
Never mind. Whatever. I would definitely... Your call. I would go for the wall.
Let me look at your enchantments since you're the only one with that.
Well, no. You can kill a land, you can kill anything but a
Artifact,
planeswalker or a
enchantment,
creature.
land. Yep.
Fine.
Actually, if you kill a land over there, you stop Arcades for another round once we kill it.
Yeah, you say that.
That's okay.
No, it's in my hand.
Don't really care about this for now. I'm tempted about the bringing back to hand, but you have to pay 2 and
yeah, and
2
it's
life, but-
like it's mostly a token.
Well, it's a
deck.
life gain deck too.
No, it's
Yeah.
not. It's just got these in here to hurt you, not to help me. Like if it were a life gain deck, I would have put an Exsanguinate or something in here.
I
You can
do
choose.
think I want the wall gone.
This.
Yeah.
Okay. My turn.
So that came in. Does anyone have flying?
Yep.
Yes.
You do have flying?
2/2.
Yep.
I'm not gonna block it, but I would sit tight and.
But attacking with Derevi means I get to untap something.
Yeah.
Well,
you
I would make the.
Well, yeah,
Thing.
you're right.
Make the elephant.
Maybe I shouldn't have played
Make
this
the
yet.
elephant.
And then
Attack somebody with Derevi. How big is Derevi? 2/2 or 2/3?
2/3. Does that have death touch?
It does not. I'll just take the 2. There you go.
Okay.
Untap it and make another elephant.
Yeah. There we go.
There's my Derevi Death token.
Oh, yeah. That's not because it's not killing.
Oh no, I've died to Derevi Death tokens.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Well, because
Okay.
nobody
Now
wants
I'm
to
done.
take the...
And
Yeah.
I'm gonna search for this. My expanse. Okay. Although I don't
Oh, this is going to be a problem.
know what I need. Ah, that's what I need. Right?
Reliquary Tower.
Yeah.
Yep, no maximum hand size, imagine that. That card couldn't possibly... That deck couldn't possibly have got card advantage.
No, not at all.
So let's see, wait, what's going on over there? Let's take a look at your play state. So we got an Arcades, we got a Mentor the Meek, and we've got a Gatekeeper, whatever it is.
She's definitely getting friendlier.
Oh yeah.
Is that thing Death Touch, or can you make it Death Touch, or is that not
What?
even a thing with that Hound?
This?
No,
Okay,
it protects.
sack Resolute Watchdog. Target creature gains indestructible until end of
Ah,
turn.
there you go.
3. I
She's
drift
saving
of
that for her commander.
Phantasms.
Oh, the Drift.
I draw a card.
Honestly, I would probably, what's the word I'm looking for? Transmute that.
Really?
It lets you go search your library for anything that's that casting cost. Oh, sorry. I typed in transmute, not drift of phantasms.
But she can
But I
also
have to
do
put it in
5
my
in the air
hand.
flying.
But what I'm saying is, there are a lot of things in that deck that are really tasty at 3 mana.
You don't necessarily. That's
Are you
her
kidding?
deck type she built, though.
I've seen it.
I haven't played it in
Yeah.
a while.
It's okay. If
I'm
it's in
just
play, it's
gonna
in
go
play.
with it. Wall of Denial.
Yep. Hold on, I don't know what the Wall of Denial does.
It's a 0/8 defender flying with Shroud.
Oh, it's that one. The worst thing in the deck. The 8 something that does 8 damage
Maybe
flying.
the thing that cost 3 was already in my hand.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing that I probably would have gone for.
Yeah. But it doesn't have haste, correct?
It does not.
No.
Neither
It's
of them
functionally
do.
an 8/8 right now.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Yep.
Alright then.
Oh man. And what do you have over there?
A 2/2, a 2/2, a 4/7, and a 1/1.
Ouch. Oh, and I'll pay 1 for the Wall of
I
Denial.
would sit tight to hold
draw
on
a card.
I would sit tight to try to defend against the army of elephants.
Yeah.
How many elephants do you have now?
4.
It literally is an elephant army.
Yeah.
Pass turn.
Alrighty then.
So, combat damage. So, when we're attacking, they are still defenders, correct?
When we attack, they're still 8. The flying thing is still an 8/8.
Oh, okay. Good
Yeah.
to know.
Alright, untap, keep draw.
Yeah. Basically, it assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power.
Got it.
I'm gonna Vulturous Aven, and when it
What
comes
does that
in, Vulturous Aven, it's a 2/3 flyer, and it has Exploit. I'm gonna Exploit a Saproling, and when it exploits a creature, I lose 2 life and draw 2 cards.
Okay.
So I will exploit my Saproling, go to 38 and draw 2 cards.
Kitty.
And then, how big is Arcades?
3/5.
God. It booty bumps with a plump booty. That's hilarious.
That's awesome.
Oh, and a creature died, lose a life, I gain a life.
What creature died?
My Saproling that I sacked.
Exact.
Then I'm playing a Golgari Signet, and then I'm tapping those 2 for Fists of the Ironwood.
Oh boy.
What does that
Um,
do?
Sexual?
Fists of the Ironwood. It gives target creature trample and brings in a Saproling when I cast it.
Ugh.
I'll bring up Fists of the Ironwood. I said fist. It's fisting a clock.
Oh.
Wait, fists or fists? Fists. Nope. Fists
No,
of the, there's no
both.
the. Fists of Ironwood.
I was gonna say that was my guess.
You guys have
Fists of
any
the Fungusaur.
nuts?
Fungusaur.
Actually, I'm gonna wait.
I'm
for
gonna
you to finish.
sit.
You created 2 tokens or just 1?
Oh, create 2. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. Read the fucking RTFC.
Yeah, we have
Okay.
a card.
Are you done?
Fist of the Fungus Star.
I'm actually gonna
Yeah.
give it a shot.
Okay.
Alright, but remember, we're supposed to say hi to someone?
Oh, right. So let me.
Alright, switch the view.
Hold on. Well, hold on. I'm gonna do one thing real quick.
Alright.
Let's see.
Pause your turn real quick. We forgot to do. DM forgot to do something.
Because that has to be in the background when we do it.
Oh.
So we're gonna say hi to Vicky Williams, who was having an issue with her foot, and I hope everything is okay. So everybody say hi to Vicky, and
Hello.
we're sending you good wishes and hope you feel well.
Feel
Hi,
better.
Vicky.
And
Hope
we'll
you
clip
get
this
better.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
We enjoyed you at Dragon Con. I hope you remember
Yay!
us.
All right. Anyway, back to the game.
Okay. So, untap.
And Banshee says best wishes too.
Yay!
Keep. Draw. Okay.
And Chicken Guy says get better as well.
Yay! Thank you guys for helping. It's Vicky Williams, Alan Williams' wife, who is.
Yeah. Who was awesome.
She is the I'm not gonna say better, but important half of that. Like the management, holy shit, you need to be here on time and not be sleeping under your table part.
I am playing Temple of the False Gods.
Yay.
I have 5 lands, so yay.
Yeah, sometimes you do a lot of partying at Dragon Con. And then sometimes you sleep under your booth's table.
And then sometimes artists behave like stereotypical artists, and they need someone who actually like understands business to run their lives.
Yes. Also, we met their daughter, who was basically running around being a little entrepreneur gopher for every booth around her and making like lots of money.
Yeah, you know, like literally, you have Alan Williams and someone with like a shit ton of business sense. She's gonna be scary when she grows up.
Yeah.
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 So, everyone's tapped out. Yay!
We're all tapped out.
Fencer!
Which Fencer?
The Sojourner. I haven't seen that one before.
Is that the one that whenever you cast a spell, you destroy something?
Exile target permanent you own, return it to the battlefield under your control at the beginning of the next
That
step.
one.
Ah. Oh, it's the flicker. It's the flicker
Yeah.
Fencer.
Bouncy.
No. The ultimate is whenever you cast a spell, exile something.
Ouch.
Yeah, that needs to
That's
die
gotta go.
fucking immediately.
That's gotta go.
Which is why I'm like, you guys are tapped out? Yes.
Well, I think there's enough flying
It's
over there
gonna
to deal
go.
with it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's gonna die next turn.
That card is what made me loathe
but the interesting
Planeswalkers.
thing is,
Even
I'm
more
going
than
to
Liliana.
take this up, and guess what? When it comes in, your commander is gonna go.
Oh, what right now?
Well, like at the end of my turn, because I'm basically saying that this goes.
Oh,
into
you
exile.
exile it, it comes back.
Yes.
Every turn she gets to bounce something.
How big
Yeah.
is your flyer? Or well, first I'm doing this, and then
Yup. That's
Myself.
an awful thing.
and then I am going to. How big is your ship again?
My what?
Flying.
2/3 and 2/2.
Okay. So you could double block Derevi,
I could,
but you're probably.
well, no. I'm sure I'll block it with the Aven. I don't give a shit. It drew me 2 cards and it's a blocker. I don't care at this point.
Okay,
And I might double block it just to kill Derevi.
yeah, but then I could kill your noble.
Sure. But remember, I have a thing to put it back on top of my library and draw it again and draw 2 more cards.
Guess I'll wait against my better judgment. Okay. Yeah. So then this
I'm
comes
not
back
bringing
in
that
the
up to her.
battlefield. What? Hang on. -1. Hang on. Wait, what?
Yeah, you look at the -1.
Unblockable.
Yeah, I mean, come on, look at the -1.
Let's
Think
go back
about
to that.
it.
Fred.
Think about that for a second.
Yeah, this is the card that made me loathe Planeswalkers.
Yeah.
Remember when I said that earlier?
Yeah.
So, but the issue is, yes, you're not wrong.
You do all that
right
damage to me,
now-
but then it will die. Yeah.
Yeah, like, so how much mana do you have currently? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So, yes, you could recast your commander next turn, but that would be, like, the only mana thing you'd be doing next turn.
Yeah. But I'll still kill it. And I'll kill it anyway.
Yeah, so you're gonna try to kill it anyway. So I just have to decide what's gonna end up being worse for me, I guess.
All I'm doing is assembling a blocking army.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's literally what I'm doing right now. I can't really do fuck all else. So. VP? No, it's frontline. Shit, I thought this was VP Manifesto.
Yep. I'm still gonna bounce your commander. And then, because you're gonna kill it anyway, so...
Yeah.
And then... Yes, pass turn.
What do you need? 10 to play it or 8?
8.
No, you have it.
Yeah, I have it. I will have it.
Yeah.
Alright, let me put it this way. I will have it.
Yes. I was about to say, she has to play land for turn.
No, man, not at all. Good night, Banshee, by the way, and
Good night.
Chingy Guy. You should subscribe and do this to them every Thursday.
Yeah. Yeah, we enjoyed talking to you, man.
Yes, it was great.
Or woman, or person. Person?
Person is safe.
Person is safe. Human.
Unless you're an alien.
Human?
Like,
Woman. Woman.
Who is it? What is it? There's something, there's somebody that I can't think of and watch them say female without thinking of Quark. Female.
Nah.
Human. Sorry, never mind. One of my clients, his name is Yumon. Y-U-M-O-N. I'm like, dude, every time I think of your name, all I can think of is Quark saying Yumon. Man, there you go.
At your planeswalker.
I'm so excited.
I just can't hide
There you
it.
go.
I know.
Because
Sorry.
I'm going to cast this super fun, cute Death Toucher and block the big one. And then I'm going to block with the Revi.
All right, wait. You flashed. What is it called?
The winged.
Winged Quaddle.
Yes, thank you. I was like, coattail, what?
Winged QU.
No, it's C.
Oh,
Like you're spelling coat.
I'm actually spelling
Alright.
Quaddle like real. So you flashed in your 1/1 Flying Death Toucher.
Alright.
And then
Nice.
the Revi dies. So you get to assign 2 points. Is it your creatures or any
creatures.
So
I will
2
gain
points.
2. Jayberry, take 2.
Although you still have flying to fuck with my planeswalkers.
I am not. Well, oh god.
but...
Oh yuck. I don't have enough to kill your planeswalker. though.
Did you make elephants?
Yeah, I made one. That's why it's still
It's the
tapped.
elephant army. Here, wait, I got elephants in here. You're gonna need them. So grab a 20-sider. Grab 2 20. Basically, you're gonna need to do tapped and untapped elephants.
I guarantee I'm not going to end up with.
I
that
have no
many
board wipes in my
outfits.
deck.
Oh.
Just that I
Jayberry might.
share.
Like.
I know
don't
she
remember.
does. I know
She's
she
got
does.
like what is it?
Here, have 2
it's
shiny elephants.
Damnation, the one.
No,
that's
the
like,
one that makes you.
What is blue white that exiles?
Oh no
everything?
no! There's better stuff in that deck that actually is destroy every creature with power greater than this, and she'll choose a
Yeah.
wall. So destroy everything that's 1 or more, or that's power 2 or 2 or more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like. Wah.
What's your biggest toughness power right now? 1.
Mm-hmm.
What's your biggest power right now? 1 or 2?
These are
3.
elephants.
3. Oh yeah, so you probably don't want to do that.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Dictate is almost a board wipe, yes. And there might possibly be an entire suite of Dictate of Erebos, Grave Pact, and Butcher in this deck. Maybe. If I could fucking find them.
Okay. So currently have 5 untapped elephants.
my card draw engine is not
pass
really.
turn.
Oh, are you done?
Yeah. Obviously.
Alright.
I didn't realize you were waiting for
Untap,
me.
upkeep, draw. Oh, that's a thing. Fuck it.
Do you mind if I open your peanuts?
No, go ahead. There's better ones up on top of the fridge, like the nice ones from Virginia Peanuts. Whatever.
I don't want to eat your nice peanuts.
Yeah, but they're gonna go out for game night anyway.
The nice peanuts?
Yeah. All right, I'm all alone. The ladies left me. They're in the kitchen looking for food. They are foraging. All right, I am playing a Tender Shoot Dryad. Is anybody gonna counter this? No, there's no mana available.
Yeah.
And I am gonna put the boots on that immediately.
What does that one do again?
It poops me out a saproling every upkeep.
Sorry, chicken D guy. Food.
All right.
Yep. And it makes your saprolings big.
Yep.
Wait,
And
do you have the city's blessing?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15,
Yes.
16,
Yeah.
17. Yeah.
Yeah. Just a little bit.
And then I shall play Slimefoot.
New
How much
target.
mana do you have?
I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Oh, okay.
I have not missed a land drop, and I have an artifact.
So what you
And
doing?
I ran for the Crozet. What I am going to do right now is... I'm going to fucking sit, because there's a fucking elephant army right there.
You should grab another elephant and see if tapped and untapped.
I give her.
Yeah. There's only one there.
Well, they're all untapped right now.
Right, and she's got another one for when they're not on top. So, I'm gonna sit tight. Sorry. Pass turn, go.
Untap.
Yeah, I have the city's blessing. I think I have the city's blessing almost in lands. So 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 in lands. Sorry, 9 in lands and a Golgari Signet. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. I literally have 20 things. I had 18 when I played it, so. I'm good for right now. Yeah, I'm sitting all right. I mean, if there's a board wipe, great. I'll just throw around a bunch of damage, but other than that, pass the motherfucking turn. Why don't I get this and pour them in a bowl?
Probably.
How about I just pour those in a bowl for you?
Maybe. Do I have to?
Aw, Mom.
I feel like I picked on you a bit.
Who's your biggest threat?
I mean, I'm not suggesting I'd go after you again, but I'm wondering if we could possibly come to some sort of truce.
I mean, I can't let that get off. I
don't
can't
wanna
let that
remember.
get up. You know that.
So, and you're the one with flying, but he
Yeah.
also has flying.
No, I've got
He has one.
2-2.
Yeah.
Fair.
He hasn't enough flying to.
I'm literally trying to get a wall going over here.
I mean, if your commander was out, he could have at least brought that down a little bit.
You need to
Maybe easier
forage
for me to
yourself.
kill. If he chose to attack that, which he should have done, but he didn't.
Oh, why didn't you remind me, goddammit?
Well,
What?
do you want to take it back?
It's
She's
already
No,
my turn.
Yeah, I'm not. That would be unfair.
Well, by the way, yeah, Christ.
Hey, look, if she taps all the elephants, we'll take a shit ton of damage, but she has no blockers.
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
Like,
She's not an idiot.
right. So I'm not that fussed about unblockable things.
What's your snack of choice? Chicken?
Oh, wow.
Well, then, since you're saying my commander can't live, more cowbell, please.
Sure.
So, I'm tapping up Venser to exile target permanent.
Okay.
I'm gonna tap this because elephant.
Yep.
I'm going into my instant,
Oh, I'm sorry.
which
I got a sapperling during your upkeep.
brings this back in and commander bounce again. Like, and then pass turn.
You're not gonna play your commander?
Nope.
Sapperling during your upkeep.
Because the cost, I can basically, it's like flashing it in, right? Or do I have
you
to
can
pay?
flash it in any time,
Yeah.
and it gets around the commander. Oh, pineapple's awesome. I would
pineapple.
kill for pine. You literally made my mouth water. I'm eating peanuts, and you made my mouth. Yeah, I would kill for some fucking pineapple.
I can eat pineapple to the point it makes me
My
sick.
mouth hurt. It still makes your
Like,
mouth like.
Yeah. It's like, why is my mouth bleeding?
Ow!
Ah, more pineapple.
Is your boy coming tomorrow?
We'll see how he feels after coming home from California.
Oh, is he? He's not. Is he not home now? Suck.
So,
I would like to play the sub home game again and make sure we actually choose the right square.
so we can't call you Cheaty McCheaty Face?
Exactly.
I,
Or like
honestly-
ADHD McADHD person.
at the end of the day, like, who knows? It really doesn't matter. It's a game. Like,
And thus are the repercussions of playing games with people who have ADHD.
I would know nothing about this.
I'm assuming she's building to the alt. So we're gonna have to try to do something about that.
Who's building? Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I
Wow.
mean, why not? Well, so to be honest, the reason I keep ticking him up is because it keeps her from attacking me with defender creatures
Yeah.
that have a better chance at killing my planeswalker than his does, because I have an elephant army, a death toucher, even this guy, which, worst case, you know...
Right.
You know? Is it my favorite option? No, but
1, 2, 3, 4.
hang on. I need to run to the restroom. Well, this is
Go upstairs.
Oh, okay.
Get girl showering.
Oh, okay.
It could be true other ways. Ooh, piece of candy. Ooh, piece of candy. Ooh, piece of candy.
And pass turn.
Alright. I get a
Played,
separate.
so I played an Axebane Guardian and a Azorius Signet.
What does the Axebane do? pull that up real
Tap
quick, I
it,
forget.
add X mana and any combination of colors to your mana pool where X is the number of creatures with Defender I control.
How many creatures with Defender do you control? AXBAN.
Axebane. AXE.
Axebane.
Guardian. 4.
Cool. So it taps for 4 mana.
Yep. Of any combination.
Oh, Jesus. No, that's not helpful. Oh, wait, hold on. I had 2 mana before my turn. I'm exiling this thing for an extra sapperling. It's 5 that are able to attack. I'm going to gain a life. And we're going to need her.
Okay, what's happening to me?
Something.
Okay.
Also, I just should note that I played that.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm attacking you for 20 worth of sapperling damage.
Okay. Do they have trample?
They're all 4/4s.
Do they have trample?
They do not.
Great.
Hold on, and 2/2 and a 2/3
Flying?
are coming at
Do they fly?
Spencer.
Do they both fly?
Yeah, the 2 flyers are going to Venser. So she's going to flash in her commander.
Let me...
So, 5 Saprolings and a 2/3 and a 2/2.
Okay. So I am tapping 4 to bring in my commander.
Yep.
How many Saprolings?
5.
Great. I am going to tap 3 to no, that's not gonna work the way I wanted to. Shit. Should have counted my mana. How bad do I want things?
Or you could just let Venser die instead of us.
How much
So remember
damage
Drevi
can you
ETP
do?
trigger.
Well, it's only 4, right? Is it 4?
What?
Flying damage?
It's only 4 flying damage.
So won't I?
Remember, watch your stream.
Yes.
You're forgetting your Drevi
Damn
ETP
right.
trigger.
So, but I haven't done that because I'm trying to decide how badly I want to do things. And the thing that's doing the Saprling stuff...
Has the Greaves on it.
Yeah. Yep.
That will never not have the Greaves on it.
You know what? I think I'm going to undo something because reasons. So the Reverie may go back. How much damage is Venser gonna take again?
4.
Okay. I can live with this life choice because if he's gonna have to die anyway.
You just don't get the every time you cast a spell you exile something. That can't be allowed to happen.
I mean, that's fair.
That is right now, that is our main point. Jaybury and I need to stop that from happening.
Okay. I'm going to tap 3 to bring in the Leonin.
Leonin Blade Master.
Yes.
Yep.
And then I'm going to tap 2 to essentially say, okay, I'm going to sack it and deals 2 damage to each attacking creature without flying. I'm assuming your Saprolings
Sure.
don't have flying. And then I'm going to block...
All 5 of them?
Yeah.
Cool.
And
All
yes, I know you're going to hit me in the
Take 10
face.
damage. They die, they do.
How big are the Saprolings?
1 damage from Slimefoot, 1 damage from that.
Oh, fuck, I forgot.
Slimefoot's in.
Ugh.
Do you want to rejigger that again? Every time a Saproling dies, each of you take 2 damage.
Each of us takes 2?
Yep. Whenever a Saproling you control dies, Slimefoot the Stowaway deals 1 damage to each opponent and you gain 1 life.
Okay.
And then this is the...
But I would take 10, she would take 5.
Correct.
So, actually though,
And I would gain 15.
I'm going to have 5 Elephant Eye. So that's actually 5 points of damage because...
And that's another 5 damage.
So you take 15?
So you're
Hang
going to
on.
take... Yeah.
Wait.
No, she's going to take 20.
No, I'm not going to take 20.
Oh, they're not Saprolings, right?
Yeah,
She'll take
like...
15. Yep.
No.
Each one, right.
Like, hang
Well,
on.
I can divvy up the...
How big are the Saprolings?
The Saprolings are 4/4s.
Yeah, so
But the
it's
elephants
still...
are...
Or 3/3s,
they're
actually,
like
unless you start double blocking. Yeah.
No, because I do the 2 points of damage to your ground Saprolings
Oh,
and
right.
they die.
They're going to die when you block.
And that's
But all
why
your
we're
elephants are-
talking
yeah.
about, like, the pain of
Do
damage.
you want to rejigger any of that? Just to be clear, I'm attacking you with 5 4/4 creatures that when they die, I gain 2 life,
So, but the issue is, if I let them through, what are my options?
20 damage. Right.
Yeah, like, so I either pick them off now, or I still take 20 damage later. So, you know what? Fuck it. Ride or die.
Ride or die, bitch.
Like, so, and I don't take 20 points of damage.
So
I
you
take
take
15.
Yes.
And I
Like-
take 10?
Yes.
How is she taking 10?
Whenever...
That's fine.
Oh,
She's
you're going to
still,
take 5. 50...
You're assigning
No, it should be...
You are assigning... Unless you're splitting this
These
up...
5 are gonna die.
That's fine, and that's 5 points of damage to
each
both
of you.
us.
It should be 10 and 5.
And then you have
it should be
10
10 and
to
5.
assign. 10 points of damage to assign. To whoever.
What are you at?
I'm at 30.
After the 5, I'm at 28.
28. So let's even you guys out and be like 6 and 4.
So I'm taking 6.
And you're taking 4.
Okay.
There you go. Merry Christmas. I'm trying to not be that big. And I gain 14.
Except
15.
when you're trying to tack on like
36.
5 damage for no good reason.
Because I'm done.
And that goes down to 3.
That's fine.
Alright. And then... what shall I do now?
Well, you already attacked, so you can't.
Right,
do
I'm in
that
my
again.
second main. It's a creature or a artifact?
Artifact.
Gotcha. Do you have any creatures in your graveyard?
Steel Wall and a Wall of Denial.
I will make 2 saprolings. Exile them, please. Pass turn.
Okay. Peanut tastes interesting.
What do you
That
want?
can't be good.
Tastes interesting? I don't want to touch those peanuts
A
now.
peanut that tastes interesting is probably not a good peanut.
Okay. I drew planes. I went ahead and played it.
No, I got a saproling during your upkeep.
Okay.
Yep.
Tendershoot Dryad's awful.
Is that what it does every turn? It makes a
It
saproling?
makes a saproling every turn.
And it's a creature?
Yeah. And if I have the city's blessing, all saprolings get +2/+2. Which I do. And I'll have it for the rest of the game.
Yeah. What artifacts and enchantments
I'm gonna
do you have
tap
in play?
this.
The Necrogenesis
and-
is the one that let me exile creatures from your graveyard to get saprolings. The
let's
Perks and
see.
Reclamation is pretty strong too.
What does that do again?
It lets me put a creature from my graveyard on top of my library.
Here, I'll lay this out so I know what my.
You ate about a pound of pineapple? Rock on, dude.
Oh yes.
Wow.
I'd be down.
The DM who abides agrees.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Come on, man. I'm wearing a bathrobe. The DM abides.
I think this
And if you watch next week, I will have shaved the beard off and I'll look 20 years younger, which is ridiculous. But
how
You're gonna shave your beard off next week?
I only grew the beard for the gravitas it gives me when I teach.
Okay.
And I did the IlixCon classes and the Luca, so now I can just be an idiot, you know.
I'm tapping
Middle-aged dude
4,
again.
and I'm bringing Derevian, and I'm tapping this, and I'm gonna tap it again to get myself an elephant. And look at this mana that's left open here. So good. Now I need to decide what I want to do with Fetzer.
Two of those elephants can attack, right?
Yes.
One.
No, one.
Yeah. Alright, so yeah.
So I only had
You're
one.
certainly not making things unblockable.
What does that fisty thing do?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Jayberry, quit that shit!
I can't! I won't!
What does it do?
What does that fisty thing do?
Okay, so it gives
The
that
creature has trample.
big ass creature trample. Okay.
I don't care. I mean, it literally just all it did was make 2 saprolings.
It's definitely fisting a clock now.
It is definitely fisting a clock. Are there any creatures in any graveyards?
Not
exiled
mine.
them.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess I can't use the Necrogenesis to make creatures.
No.
And that has to be from your library.
No.
I thought it did.
Creature card from a graveyard. From the
Oh,
graveyard.
okay. Yeah. I'm not so worried about that. Like,
It just exiles things and you make a sapling?
Yeah, it's... Here, I'll bring it up again.
You exile 2 creatures, you make a sapling?
Nope, 1 creature, it's a different card. This is the one that's 1.
Meow. Yeah.
The mono green one is exile 2 creatures. I think you have it in your elf deck.
Oh, okay.
It actually kind of looks like a Scott Fisher with all the stuff he was telling us about the creepy shit he used to put in his paintings.
Yeah.
Checking
That was really cool.
Fencer up to 5.
I'm glad I watched that again
What did
because
it
I
do
wasn't paying
to take
attention for some.
I exile and then
return.
it comes at
Yeah.
beginning of my X step. And your chaperlings don't have trample?
Nope.
And what is that other thing?
This is the 3/2 flyer, or the 2/3 flyer that I attacked Venture with last turn.
Yeah.
Delayed flicker. I like that. That's actually a good term. It is delayed flicker.
I am going to bounce this.
Yep. Comes back. What does it hit?
Ends up your enchanted trampler.
Poof.
So it's exiled.
Yeah, but if that comes back in, it actually does other things.
Oh, right. Never mind. Keep that.
You probably want to hit either one of the tokens that can never come back, or the thing that's doing damage when everything dies.
That's true.
Or the thing that taps for 5 mana or 4 mana.
Can target creatures.
Yeah, but I think we, like, as long as Venser kind of stays in his place,
Yeah,
I think we've got
Slime. I could
truths.
just play Slimefoot again
Like-
next turn. Slimefoot's 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I'm not bouncing Slimefoot, because, like, it's a joke. But one of those tokens seems appealing because it just evaporates. Yeah, one of the tokens.
Poof.
Because they're big.
Poof.
And I need enough elephants to protect.
Alright, my turn.
Yes.
So we're gonna see Arcades again this turn.
Maybe.
You have enough
I need 1 more mana.
Really? Even with the tapping?
Oh, wait, yeah.
Yeah, you have way more than enough mana
forgot
to play
about that.
Arcades. Peanuts.
What if I choose to do something else? You don't know.
Then do something else.
Then do something else. Maybe I will.
Maybe you will.
Maybe I will.
Oh, I've got options.
Yeah. Try to slow him down.
Me?
Yeah. Yeah, you. Me? I'm so sweet and innocent.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Alright.
I can't let you kill Venser. I don't mind him getting knocked down a peg or 2.
I mean, I couldn't kill Venser.
Yeah, she could. If
Please,
you play your
God, kill
commander, you
Venser.
would.
But
But
no, I
if
couldn't.
you attack me,
I couldn't. Here's why I can't kill Venser.
No, you can.
I only have 1 flyer,
Right.
and you have
oh,
3.
you're right.
So
sure, let her block with her commander.
Okay,
Like,
I've got options.
let her eat her cards up and her mana up.
I'm gonna do the other thing. You can take care of Venser.
I will do my best.
If it
Problem
hurts
is-
me,
The problem is I'm not going to be able. If Jarevi is not in play. Yeah. Anyway.
Everything's a tough choice right now.
Yes,
to be
it is.
honest.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got a Saproling during your turn. Why do you think I put the Greaves on the Tendershoe Dryad immediately?
I can get rid of the Greaves,
Okay.
but
2, 3.
I mean, you could have gotten rid of everything. You know, you could just flicker your acidic.
Wait,
Yeah, I
hold
know.
on. Never mind. I'm fine. I forgot I had a thing.
Oh, are you wearing your little Star Wars sleepy shirt?
I'll hold that. So how many defenders? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There.
Uh-oh, what are you playing for? Arcades.
Arcades.
Oh,
Response?
I'm considering it because is it coming at me?
Yes! Well, it's coming to Venser, probably.
Probably a Venser.
Well,
Or not.
I mean, it is or
Well,
isn't.
do your thing.
Yep.
It probably is.
Of course it's coming at Venser. Venser's the fucking hugest threat on the board.
Fine.
It's the hugest threat I've seen all night. Well, at least you get to draw cards.
So
It's countered.
my next turn I draw 2 cards?
At the beginning of the next turn's upkeep, you draw 2 cards, she draws 1, and it's
Okay.
a counter spell.
Okay.
Done?
Yeah.
Alright.
So it's your upkeep.
Oh, before my turn, I will
So
put
I
another
draw 2
sapling in.
cards?
Before my turn, put another sapling
So I
in.
draw 2 cards?
Yeah.
Yes.
Now we untap. Sapling in for the turn.
So wait, what happened at the end of your turn? Or then my turn?
I
You
had
just
4
did-
mana with... For 4 mana with Slimefoot, I could
Uh-huh.
make a sapling.
Okay. Got it.
And
Alright.
you had 4 mana?
I did. I was sitting on 4 mana.
I see.
Hello!
Oh, hi. I don't even know what streaming program that is.
That's Mixer, I believe.
Oh hey Zulu Zach.
No, hey, Zuzak.
Sorry I missed you.
Yep.
Alright, so... What am I gonna do? What to do, what to do, what to do? I've got 5 4/4 saplings, so they're gonna... Something's gonna happen with those. Cards in graveyards?
None.
You mean creatures?
Cards, period.
3.
None.
You literally have no cards in
4.
your graveyard.
You exiled my only 2 cards from my graveyard.
Alright, well, Bajuka Bog,
So
exile
nice.
whatever the fuck's in yours.
Okay. Then.
Then... You know what, just cause I'm annoyed at this point. 5 4/4 zombies.
You
And-
mean Sapperlings?
Sapperlings.
Sorry. 5 4/4 sapperlings and a Vulturous Aven at Venser.
How big is the thingy?
It's a 2/3 flyer, and then 5 4/4 creatures.
And I don't have enough to block any. Like, I'd have to throw everything.
And I'd be fine with that part as well.
I would not be fine with that. Because that would be less fun. Although, how big is the flyer?
Hey, Bunny.
Hey bunny.
How's Whore Island? Go back to your home on Whore Island. Private joke.
How big is the
Pestilent
flyer?
Spirit deck. Ouch.
Oh, it's awesome.
How big is the flyer?
2/3.
Okay.
Whore Island is saucy. I am glad Whore Island is saucy.
Whore Island's always saucy.
So I actually have Pestilent Spirit in a red-black Rakdos deck. We're playing Commander, so one of any card, blah, blah, blah.
You know what? They're all going at Venser.
Yeah. Just let him die.
Yep.
Let him die. Thank you.
No. You're not welcome. What else are you doing? Like...
I'm gonna pass turn.
Okay. Untap.
Okay, I took... Venser's gone. Venser's now dead.
Yay.
Alright. So there's 5 tapped and 2 untapped now. Yep, red-black Pestilent Spirit deck. Rock on.
Okay.
I have no idea if you what you identify as, but I was going to say Mana for Moon Heart, but red-black Pestilent Spirit is a lovely, lovely Rakdos burn deck. And I will bring that up just so people know what we're talking about. So the point there is, all of your instant sorcery spells have death touch. So if you cast an instant that does 1 damage, it's 1 death touch damage. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Nice.
gorgeous art too. I love that art.
Flyer.
A 2/2.
I wonder if you want it gone yet.
Fuck no. I will happily take 2 damage flying.
2 damage from Derevi.
I take. Here's my Derevi death token. I'm up to 4.
Yay.
And what am I untapping? Oh wait, hang on. Sorry.
Make an elephant.
And then untap the elephant. That was the obvious choice.
I'll untap that. There you go.
Yeah.
And Derevi is now tapped.
Yes.
You have 4 elephants. Oh, 5 elephants.
Yeah. Because.
He didn't
And
know.
obviously you did not attack, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. What am I doing? Who do I dislike more?
I dislike.
Not me.
Come on, you love us both. Just who's annoying you more.
Yeah. Like, who has...
So if you don't play
Making my
Commander,
life
we play
miserable.
Commander every Thursday night. You'll get
He is,
tons of
but,
suggestions.
Like, the card that I have is more effective for you. Like, and it would definitely keep you from murdering me with, like, your
Tap
big
that
things.
elephant.
I don't have any big things anymore. I have a 0-5.
Yes, which is...
So
I'm gonna
Player
0-8
Commander
anymore.
again.
I am actually playing. I am playing
And you
a.
can double block it with 2 elephants and it won't matter.
I'm playing Slimefoot,
flies.
and this card is
Oh, yeah,
selling
it does
for 21 cents. So let me
But
tell
you're
you,
not my-
What is the
you can get a 21-cent
That's
commander
55
that's pretty
life
good.
over there. You're not
You know what?
the main target.
Hang on. He gains life?
What?
Never mind. I'm just gonna do this.
He's at 55 life over there.
Just say thank you. I mean, he's not playing blues, so I don't think he can counter this.
I can't counter anything.
Dark Seal Mutation!
Enchanted creature is a 0/1 insect. Blah 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 blah. Yeah, I'm gonna make 2. I'm gonna make 2 Saprotlings before that happens.
How?
I'm paying 8 mana. Before it triggers, I'm making 2 Saprotlings with it.
I guess
can't do
if the
anything
stack
about that.
works that way?
Yeah, it's in response to you casting the spell.
Okay,
It's
fine.
an instant effect, I think.
Sure.
It works.
Yep.
I think.
But we
Oh,
won't
you
be
got a
less-
magic box? A box of magic cards?
Ooh.
Sure, bring
We
them
should
down.
do that on the stream.
Actually, we should do it on the stream at
Yeah.
MagFest in literally 2.5 months.
So...
Or a month and a half.
Or when next
Like
time you're
7
here.
weeks out to MagFest.
So, I will... I don't know. Going through an entire box of magic cards, that's
We'll
a
do it
different
on
kind
the
of
stream. Yeah, we'll do it. We'll do it with you at MagFest, maybe not on
Yeah.
the stream.
On the stream, that'd be kind of
Look,
boring.
oh god. Says the general counsel of MagFest. So MagFest is
Yeah,
a
it's
music
a
and gaming festival in
hang
Washington,
on.
D.C. There is anything you ever wanted to do with regard to gaming, video gaming more precisely, and video game music. It's a shit ton of fun. Bunny, was that appropriate? So by the way, Rad Rach is Bunny.
Yeah.
Okay, so I am tapping 5 and also playing a...
Yeah, well, I mean,
Diviner's
you need
Spirit.
lands to make things.
Enemy deals combat damage to a player in that player.
Oh, what is
draw
that?
that many cards.
You and that player. See? Let me damage you!
What was it?
A diviner spirit.
Diviners or Diviner?
Diviner.
Ooh, that's creepy ass art.
So we can be friends.
We are streaming on Mixer, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Periscope, and like 1 or 2 others. But
Yeah.
there's 8 of them, and one of them, Mixer, is not up right now because they need to redo the stream. I had to redo certain things, so.
Alright,
But we do it all
I'm done.
concurrently.
Sorry, pass turn.
at the end of your turn... I'm gonna-
Yeah, we're streaming on LinkedIn. There is
Yeah,
literally
Sylvan
a Coven MTG
Reclamation.
LinkedIn account.
Sylvan Reclamation on both of those.
Sure.
things.
Poof. They're exiled.
Yep. And now I have a card in my graveyard.
What doesn't matter now?
I know. Untap.
I wonder if I
Sapling.
have any way to get Fencer back. That'd be sweet. Oh, so
LinkedIn
cool.
is what is LinkedIn? I'm not even gonna answer that one. LinkedIn is a LinkedIn is a social media marketing site in the United
More
States.
for business.
Hey, Captain Harris.
Hello.
It's been a while. How you doing?
Now I'm cold.
Yeah.
You've been like hot and cold and hot and cold and hot and cold all night.
You're
I'm clammy.
sticky.
'Cause I'm warm in this thing.
But you're too cool for school, so you
Well, I'm
can't.
trying to, you know, like you guys weren't
Fit in
feeling
with
well,
things.
so I was like, all right, we're all gonna have pajama night.
Alright, do I get Arcades? Do I get to
I
keep him? Okay.
have no way to stop him.
Okay. Just wanted to check.
Ah.
Tapped out.
It's like a resume with connections.
What flying do you have over there?
It's 2/2.
That's 2-2.
I am not coming at you.
Yep.
Have to kill your friends in Magic sometimes.
Yep.
Gonna try. Oh, wait, I forgot.
By the way, I guess like if you really didn't have anything else to do, that's the only time that would get to 6+. Like it'd be like I have nothing else I can play. Level up.
So I've been super stealthy over here. I'm swinging at you for 40 damage worth of Saprolings next turn.
Oh, Jesus.
Are they trampled?
Jesus
No.
Christ.
Okay, well, I can block several of them. And Slimefoot can't do damage to me now. So yes, I realize you can assign like 5 points of damage or whatnot.
Yep.
Well, actually, yeah. So that's okay. It just means I get to go home.
And I draw 2 cards.
I get to go to bed earlier than expected.
And
Kill your friends with a smile, a goat army, and an army of fungus.
I want a goat army.
I am literally killing them with an army of 1/1 fungus
Although,
creatures.
if you keep me around for a bit longer, I'll continue to fuck with them.
I'm not gonna attack you. 5
You're out of
flying.
your mind if you're... Okay. Sure. I'm at 50.
Why is she out of her mind? You're at 50.
Because I'm concentrating on you, you know.
That's fine. But you're at
Pass
50.
Yeah.
And she's at 24.
Alright, so there are 10 Saprolings here. One that I cannot attack with that just came in.
Like... oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
I'm gonna Crozen Grip and disenchant my commander.
Fair.
You can't counter it anyway.
Yeah. That's yours.
Thanks.
And then...
Is that exile or destroy?
Destroy.
It's destroy. Okay.
And then I'm gonna play Poison Tip Archer. Whenever a creature dies, each opponent loses a life.
Yep.
And then I'm gonna
And this
swing
is
at
how the
you with
game ends.
20 damage or 40 damage worth of Saprolings. 10 4/4s.
Oh, you're probably dead anyway.
Well,
The
let's see.
fungus!
So you block
I go
5
block
of
5.
them. And then...
That was
So
DM's
that would
evil
be
laugh.
20, and then he'd
Yeah.
assign the damage. So you know what?
There are many fungus
I'm not
among
gonna
us.
let you get damaged by his shenanigans, because
Okay.
what happens is he already has enough to like basically kill me, and I'll be like, oh, you blocked with some, so I'm gonna assign 4 points of damage, and then guess
Yeah.
what? A bunch of damage is coming your way.
I love the plant army too.
So I'm just like
Are you just gonna
Yeah.
take it and die?
probably. Well, so the issue is, I would basically be hurting her chances of like doing damage.
Oh,
against
so
you.
we are indeed playing arch enemy.
Well, I'm sorry. You
If you can
just swung
prevent
40 plants, 40 points of plant damage at me.
You can
That's funny.
prevent as much...
So if you're
Damage
watching on
directly
Facebook,
to
by the
me,
way,
keep me
just go to your
alive.
Facebook page, click on Coven
might be able to
MTG,
do
and there's a
something.
video there that you
Well,
watch
I
live.
mean, I'm gonna die. But
Thanks, Bunny.
I mean, I could take out 1, and that would only do 2 points of damage to you, but you'd have 1 less for sapperling. I'm not sure that makes your life any better, but
Yeah.
maybe. Because you'd only take 2 points of damage, but he would gain 2. You know what? No, I'll take all of it.
Just gonna die?
I was gonna die anyway.
Gotcha.
But the point is, I'm not allowing you to do damage to
Fucker!
her. I'm also not allowing you to gain more life.
Okay.
So...
Oh, wait. So nothing died.
Yes.
Alright.
That was the point.
Jayberry's upkeep.
I'm not sure it'll save her, but maybe she has a board wipe. Oh, but...
If she board wipes, she dies.
No,
Yeah.
she'd still survive.
No, that's 10, 11, 12. She's gonna take 24 at least if she board wipes. Thanks, Bunny. I appreciate it.
I almost tried to shuffle Derivian.
So if you want to do a 60 or like a little variant, you
No.
can after this? Okay.
No.
Well, I think we're just about done, because...
Yeah.
Yeah, had you not drawn the thing to kill my enchantment, that would have helped some.
I had it in my hand most of the game.
Well.
Alright.
What I drew... Oh, sorry. Well, what I drew was a land. Oh no, what I drew was a poison tip.
Huh.
Actually, if she board wipes, she takes 3 points of damage for everything that dies.
Yeah.
Well, then, if she had the one exile
If she had an exile,
card, I was
sure,
thinking
absolutely.
of- What is it called? It's the blue-white one that I'm thinking of. It's got like the...
Oh, if you can exile all saprolings, that's the thing. The
Ooh, yeah.
the enchantment, exile target creature and everything with that name.
The
That would be a
same name?
problem.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, there's a wizard
Actually,
that does
do
that
I
too.
have that in here?
That should be in there if it's not.
Like, life. Because flash is important.
I have a doorkeeper.
What does a
and
doorkeeper
a
do?
wall of tangle cord.
Oh, okay. I know it yet.
I draw 4 cards.
Jesus. No max hand size.
Yep.
It's not gonna help me.
Hey, why'd you look? You guys are
Matter.
close. Hang on. Do I have it? I have a Kasmina. Ooh, or this would be nice. Wash out.
That would have helped.
Like-
Yeah, all green creatures. That would have fucked
Yeah.
her too.
I would have been like, ah, bye.
I use that card all the time.
Um,
Yeah, all green creatures would have screwed us.
Portcullis Vine, draw a card.
God damn it.
Pass turn.
Alright.
that's still a lot of mana open.
Alright. Oh, I put another sapling in before my turn. I have 4 right here. Alright, fuck it. Let's just begin.
Alright.
I'm gonna swing at you for 13 times 4, so 13 4/4 creatures.
Okay.
Or this would have been good.
Does that kill you? How many blockers do you have? 10?
So if your creatures die,
If my creatures die, they do 3 points of damage to your face.
Unless you have something to like bounce his
Thank you.
commander or...
Thank you, Chicken Guy. That's 52 damage if you don't block any of it. But she's got a shit ton of blockers.
yeah, but if your stuff dies,
That's the problem. If it dies, it hurts you. If you kill it, it does 3 damage to you. And gives me 3 life. So, alright. Nothing to see on my side of the table because it's literally just 13 Saprolings that are
And they're
4/4.
4/4s.
Yeah.
I did add a slightly mean one.
I love that card. If they all if every one of my creatures die, it's 39 damage.
Unless you have a way to bounce one of this thing that's causing damage.
Yeah.
I think the only thing I can do is this and try to figure it out.
Sure.
See what happens.
So 3. See if I find it. Stay alive.
So you're tapping 3 to...
To do an unbreakable formation.
Which is...
All my creatures are indestructible.
Sure.
So...
Do they get bigger?
No, because I had to do that during my main phase.
Oh, right.
So...
But they still might.
So let me
And
bring
we
that up
have
so people...
13 4/4s.
Whoop, sorry. 13 4/4 creatures.
Alright. So...
Yeah, I don't have.
So that's what you played.
Yeah, so none of my stuff can die. At least.
Yep.
By blocking.
So you won't take
Alright.
points of damage based on that.
So I'll block 1 Saproling and it will live.
Okay.
I'll block.
So 12. You got 12 left.
Alright. I'll block another Saproling and it will live.
11.
I'll block another Saproling and it will live.
10. The Saproling lives?
Yep.
Yes.
Don't they do damage equal to their power?
Yes, but
Yeah, but
she's
they're
picking
small.
the little ones.
Oh, okay.
3, 2, and 2.
Okay. So
Alright.
now we're at 10.
So that was 3 Saprolings.
That's 13. So now we're
Okay.
at 10.
I'll block 1 and the Saproling will live.
Okay. 9.
I'll block
Use that.
another Saproling and it will live.
8.
Alright. And so I have
So right now
1,
there's
2, 3.
40 damage.
I'll block another Saproling and it will live.
Okay. 7.
So how many Saprolings left?
7 left.
7. So there was 13, right?
Yep.
So that's.
So 7 left. Okay. 1 Saproling will die.
1 dies. Can you keep track of the die, please? Hold up a finger.
Yes. So
Okay.
she's gonna kill 4.
I'm gonna kill
2,
4,
3, 4.
and they will die.
Okay, so 3 get through, so that's 12 damage.
At 12.
And
Okay.
then 12 damage. Crap.
And then 4, 8, 12, 16 damage.
Well,
Oh,
I
no,
tried.
3, 6, 9, 12.
So it's still 12.
Alright, well, I'm still dead.
Yeah.
You did.
Tried.
There was no way to get around. I started having the aristocrats started to do their thing.
Yeah.
All I had. Nothing would have saved me.
No. Because that would have killed you. Because
Yeah,
you
it
would
would
have
have
made
killed
them
me.
bigger.
Yep, I
Yeah.
couldn't bar the door.
Right, because then
Actually, you could have played this to see what you drew.
Try it.
No. For
Not
us,
helpful.
That wouldn't help.
Yeah. I did my maximum draw ability and left some mana open to...
Jesus, you had enough fucking
I
cards in
could've
your hand that
drawn
game.
Yeah.
So honestly, the Tendershoot
I
Dryad,
would've- man, if I had drawn that earlier.
Yeah,
I
that
could've
would've,
lived,
yeah.
the Tendershoot Dryad in combination with Vertaloth, that gave everything all this Saprolings +3/+3 was deadly.
Yeah.
If she had not been attacking me with her commander each time, I probably would have killed that.
Well, you
I
were a
would've
bigger threat
felt
earlier. Venser was
that-
the biggest threat
Yeah,
this
so-
game saw.
So,
But she attacked you before you played Venser, I know.
but not even that. Venser, even with it ticking up, you guys were picking it down enough
Yeah,
to
we
where,
had to.
like, it wouldn't have been the issue you are behaving like it's going to be. Like, I would have spent my time killing the Dryad, which is the thing that killed us.
Oh, yeah,
But I
the Dryad
couldn't
was the biggest problem.
because
Because of the boots.
well, because I could have killed your boots, and then I could have like
Which-
focused on that.
What were you taking care of instead? Oh, you were
For
taking care of
commander.
the... Well, yeah, if you didn't, you would have died to that. I mean,
Yes.
Yeah.
so...
No
All right,
good
well,
choices.
we're going to land a little early tonight because everybody's kind of sick, which is why we're wearing bathrobes.
Yeah.
Yep.
The flood has consumed all. No, I'm sorry. The refuse heap has crept up and grown fungus all over everything.
I guess these zombie tokens are
true,
gonna hide
that.
into Revi for me to be.
Fine
Good night,
later.
y'all.
Hey, thanks
Good
for
night.
watching.
Thanks for watching.
yeah.
We hope
we-
you join us next time.
And please subscribe, follow. We
Yeah.
We also have a Patreon, so if you're on Patreon, please check us out at Coven MTG.
Yeah.
All the other social medias, you know.
Yeah.
and all of the social medias, and
We do this, every Thursday. So thanks for joining
and we
us.
should talk about what we're gonna do on Thanksgiving.
Oh, that's a Thursday.
It is indeed a Thursday in 2 weeks.
We'll figure it out.
We are.
And
Good night,
let
Bunny. It was
everyone
good.
know.
It was good seeing you, and we will
Yeah.
see you next Thursday.
Yeah,
Keep
check
everyone
out our cool
posted.
rewards.
Yep.
Thanks,
We do have fun rewards.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Good
Chicken
night,
D
folks.
guy.
Good night, folks.
Yeah, hang out with us next time. You were fun.
Yeah, you were fun. You knew stuff.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Where is?
Stop
Where's
streaming
the
is
stop
harder up
There
there.
it is.
Bye.